Is it time?
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day.
We'll know in a very short period of time, but it looks like it could be something that will be not good. Believe me, not good.
I see issue with that. And again, hey.
You're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen.
I don't know who created Pokemon Go, but I'm trying to figure out how we get them to have Pokemon go to the polls.
I'm Ted Cruz, and my pronoun is kiss my ass.
So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time in terms of what we need to do to lay these wires, what we need to do to create these jobs.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was going to put
Not good. Believe me, not good.
Hello, dissidents. Welcome, one and all. Pleasant good evening to you all. Welcome to this Wednesday night edition of the Do Dissidents podcast. My name is Keaton Weiss, here, of course, with Russell Dobular.
Hello.
Hello, everybody. Pleasure to see you all here.
To all our Chinese friends, ni hao.
Ni hao, indeed. Indeed. How are we doing over... Jake, are we all right over on Rumble? You said something happened. Are we good or not? Playing the countdown still. So is Rumble just behind? It seems like
it's Rumble on a delay.
It seems like something's going on over there. Is it not? Let me see. Yeah, it seems like it's glitching out.
Fucking Mossad.
Rumble trouble.
NSA. Mossad.
NSA.
Could
yeah, something is glitching out over there for sure. Jake, if you want, you can try doing that thing, the standard Rumble fix, where you go into our StreamYard and just update the destination. I mean, you don't have to set up a new live stream. See if you could do that. Okay, yeah, you know what I mean? You just go in and you hit edit server, and maybe that will help. If not, yeah, you could try setting something up. So thank you all for being here on YouTube. Yeah, looks like something is definitely happening over on Rumble. Beautiful. I was just saying that we were having good luck with Rumble lately. Remember that?
I think that was this morning.
Yeah, I was just saying, hey, we haven't had any trouble on Rumble in a long time. And look at that. What do you know? Turns out Rumble is glitching out on us a bit. We are working on that, so we will... hopefully
smack it on the side.
Yeah, smack it on the side. Exactly. Jake, just let me know when you've attempted that fix, and if you have, then we will see what we could do. Yeah, everybody's asking, work some magic, Jake. They're rooting for you, Jake. Oh, man.
If Jake can't do it, no one can.
If Jake can't do it, no one can. That's correct. Yeah, that is brutal. Yeah, Jake, if you want, you can try setting up a new stream. Yeah, go for it. So just post in the chat that we're going to try a new stream. All right, and we'll try to get that going.
So what are we going to do? We're going to put a link in the chat? No. Well,
What's
it's just
that?
for the how is that even going to work? Well, you don't.
There will not be a link.
Don't even try to explain these things to me.
Yeah, it'll just be a new stream because you can't set up a new stream, Jake, until you end that one. So you got to go into the back end and end that stream. In fact, here, Jake, do you want to give me a call? Here, why don't we take a quick time out, folks, and we will be back in just a moment. Just a moment, everybody. Sorry. All right. See, Russell, I nailed the intro for you this time. Russell's been wanting me to say hello, dissidents. Got to say hello, dissidents to start out the show. And I did, and turns out it was a false start.
It broke Rumble?
It broke Rumble. But now, no, we're back on. We're on. We fixed it. I just had to talk Jake through that because Jake and I did an emergency drill for when, Peter Thiel's taking a shit and Rumble doesn't work. And but that was a while ago. I literally just said Rumble's been working great for us lately. We haven't had any problems. And then tonight that went and happened. And so it had been a while since Jake had to do an emergency sort of troubleshoot. I did a fire drill with Jake a while back, but, it wasn't fresh in his mind, as is totally understandable. So we walked through that and set up a new stream. So hopefully that works out for us over there. Thank you guys very much over on Rumble for finding that new link. And thank you all on YouTube for being here and hanging out with us. We have our new crowd filing in over on Rumble. And so hopefully everything is working out over there. So it looks like the crowd is filing in over there. Chat's going. Seems to be all good. Back up. All right, beautiful. Well, thank you, folks, very much. Right. We apologize for that.
All right, cool. You have a new shirt to show off?
I do have a new shirt to show off. Maybe it was this shirt that jinxed this. This is the shirt that Russell bought for me and sent to my house. Lebowski 2024. This aggression will not stand, man. Beautiful.
Because I knew Keaton was a big fan.
I am a big fan of the movie, and so I appreciate that very much.
There is one of John Goodman with the bat. I almost got you that one.
Oh, yeah. That'd be a good one, too.
There is one of him, holding the bat.
Yeah, that would be pretty money as well. But all right, beautiful. Okay, all right. So we made this happen. We got everything up and running. Apologies, folks, for those technical difficulties. There's nothing we could do about it. That was just literally... It was a thing where Rumble the stream hit a snag. It played the same 12 seconds on the countdown over and over again. It's not like the stream didn't connect. It just started skipping, which...
Interesting.
Awesome.
So basically, Rumble is running on vinyl.
Yeah, right. Yeah, running on vinyl. Yeah, exactly.
They've got like an old stereo set up there in the back.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing you can do about that when that happens. So, all right, folks, let's get our stuff together and let's start the program tonight. Thank you guys all for being here. Jake, our producer, thanks for helping with that. That was fantastic. We are able to field Rumble rants tonight and Super Chat, so thank you guys all very much for being here. 652 in the YouTube chat, and our Rumble chat was up over 200, and then we got screwed. So they're filing in, though. Up over 100 now. Beautiful. Thank you, all your Rumblers, for coming back to us. Alrighty, folks. So why don't we start the insanity tonight on an unexpected note? I don't pay attention very much to Ben Shapiro or Candace Owens, and so... It was really not of much interest to me when they started beefing over the Israel-Palestine thing. Obviously, Candace Owens works for the Daily Wire. Hit it, Russell. Beautiful. Thank you.
Coming to Barclays Center next November.
Exactly. Candace Owens works for the Daily Wire, and she is obviously a conservative commentator who apparently is not as bloodthirsty as Ben Shapiro would like her to be on the Israel-Palestine issue. And there's been some back and forth. Some people have been covering this more than others. Like I said, I don't follow either of them particularly closely. I wasn't particularly interested in this. And I did not think that it would come to a situation where she would either leave the Daily Wire or he would fire her, because I just thought it would just look too bad if the free speech conservatives force someone out for taking the wrong position on an issue. But it seems like things may be getting real over there. And so just to catch everybody up, we put this together at the last minute because this story was really just late breaking right before we came on. Here's Ben Shapiro a few days ago calling out Candace Owens for disgraceful behavior and attitudes on this issue. So here he is.
Yes, the question was about Candace Owens. I think her behavior during this has been disgraceful. Without a doubt, I think it's she still works for my company. I think she's been absolutely disgraceful.
She works for my company, and I think she's been absolutely disgraceful.
Her sophistication on these particular issues has been ridiculous. It's not faux sophistication, it's ridiculous. Everybody can see the moves that she's making and the things that she's saying, and I find them disreputable. Yes.
Oh, wow. Disgraceful and disreputable. All right. So that catches everybody up more or less. However.
Well, when you think about what wouldn't be disgraceful, like if an employee said, we have to exterminate them.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
Would you be saying that?
I
feel like he wouldn't. I feel like he wouldn't. I feel like he wouldn't consider that disgraceful.
You mean like if we have to exterminate who?
The Palestinians. If one of his employees said that, we have to exterminate them, would that be too much? Would he feel a need to rein them in?
He might feel a need to rein them in for like political correctness issues or censorship issues, but I don't think he would call them disgraceful. I think he went too far with that one.
People are upset.
People are upset. Emotions are high. You know, and look, Candace Owens has been...
He ate in a kosher deli once. He's very connected to the community.
Yeah, exactly. Candace Owens has been, to Shapiro's left on Israel-Palestine, but, Netanyahu is to Shapiro's left on Israel-Palestine. I mean, Ben Shapiro makes RFK look like Linda Sarsour. And so, it is really difficult to please him on this issue, but she has gone, I guess... far enough left for him on this issue to the point where he felt the need to call her out publicly. Now, like I said, didn't take much interest in this story because I didn't think it would really go further than that. It would just be too damaging to his reputation to fire her over this. But Candace Owens tweeted at 5 p.m. She retweeted. That was later in the evening. But she tweeted this morning. That's right. And then Shapiro quote tweeted it just before we went on, pretty much. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God. Blessed are they which are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are ye when men shall revile you and persecute you, and shall say all manner of evil against you falsely for my sake. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one and love the other, or you will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money. Now, 5:17 p.m., that's when he quote tweeted her. Candace, if you feel that taking money from the Daily Wire somehow comes between you and God, by all means, quit. See, that's interesting. I didn't see that coming. I didn't think he'd fire.
You get the balls.
I didn't think he would fire her because I think, it would just be too damaging to their reputation. Like, conservatives have been screaming about free speech and cancel culture. And yeah, we know they're hypocrites on it, but this would be taking it to an extreme that I think would just be too obvious even to their supporters and fans, not all of whom are gung-ho on Israel. Candace Owens works for the Daily Wire. She has a lot of fans, and a lot of them fall more or less where she does. So I didn't think he would take it here. But apparently he did. And then she tweets back, "You have been acting unprofessional and emotionally unhinged for weeks now, and we have all had to sit back and allow it, and have all tried to exercise exceeding understanding for your raw emotion." That's being very diplomatic. But you cross a certain line when you come for scripture and read yourself into it. I will not tolerate it. Now, as of this recording, to my knowledge at least, there have not been any further interactions between them. But if she ends up leaving the Daily Wire over this, that would be major. I didn't think he would fire her, but if he kind of pushes her out, because that whole thing, why don't you just quit? That's an underhanded way of pushing her out the door, because who wants to work at it? Especially if you're Candace Owens and you can have a career anywhere you want. She may have some sort of non-compete clause, but those don't last very long. Those are very difficult to enforce, especially against someone as famous as Candace Owens. And so it would just be pretty amazing if he ends up forcing her out over this.
Okay. When we talked about this on RBN, this was basically what I said.
Yeah, and I didn't believe it. I'll eat a little shit because I just didn't think they would go this far.
It doesn't surprise me because I think I read Candace Owens right, and people don't want to hear this because they don't like her politics. Candace Owens strikes me, she does not strike me as a grifter. She strikes me as someone for whom these are her principles. This is what she believes in. It does not surprise me that she would stand on principle in this case and tell him to go fuck himself. That's in keeping with how I read her. You don't have to like her politics. Not everyone whose politics you don't like is on the grift. Matt Walsh is a perfect example. I have no doubt that he means everything that he's saying, right? I don't like his politics, but I don't question his sincerity about what he believes. Same thing with her. This doesn't surprise me about her at all. And Shapiro is the dictionary textbook definition of an unhinged Zionist. So you get somebody who's working for him, who is trying in any way to offer any moderation on this issue, which again, she knows who she works for. I think she's a person of principle, again, whether you generally like her principles or not. That's how I read her. So it doesn't surprise me that she took this stand that jeopardizes her relationship to Shapiro, and it doesn't surprise me he reacted this way. It makes total sense if you look at if you look at who they both are, that it would end up like this.
Yeah, well, we will see if there are any further developments on that front, but we thought we should just check in with that because honestly, neither of them interest me very much. And so I really hadn't paid much attention to it up till now. But, canning her over this, that would be a big story for sure.
I talked about this on RBN too, and I would recommend it to our viewers to get better insight into not only Candace Owens, but black conservatism. It's called Uncle Tom. They did a sequel I haven't seen. Uncle Tom 2 is on there too. It's on Amazon Prime Video. And I think that was where I read, because I didn't know a lot about her. That was where I came away saying, all right, I can see where she's coming from, even if I don't agree with a lot of her conclusions. Also, remember, you see this also with Cenk. Cenk started out a Republican, right? And you can see those Republican tendencies come out on a lot of issues and the way he reacts to a lot of questions. She started out a lib. So it's not surprising that in a situation like this, some of where she came from might come out and she might have a more moderating stance than somebody like Shapiro, who you get the sense popped out of his mother's womb, a right-wing Zionist.
Yeah, for sure. For sure, indeed. All right, folks. Well, speaking of free speech, we are going to move right along here. This is a New York State story and somewhat of a local story here in the capital region of New York. Governor Kathy Hochul has ramped up social media surveillance over surging anti-Semitism, says Governor Kathy Hochul, my neighbor here in the capital region of New York State. New York Governor Kathy Hochul announced Monday her state has ramped up social media surveillance efforts in response to increased anti-Semitism in the Big Apple. In a speech, Governor Hochul cited a rise in pro-Palestine rallies taking place across New York City, such as one over Veterans Day weekend, which saw a protester scale a light post to tear down U.S. and UN flags. These incidents, she said, are beginning to impact the way New Yorkers interact with one another online. Notice they never cite actual violence at these rallies and these protests. It's always some hand-wringing, some tone policing. Oh my God, did you see? There was video of this. It didn't go particularly viral since it was kind of boring. A lot of the right-wingers made a big deal about this. There was some guy who climbed a light post and there was a Palestine flag, a U.S. flag, and a UN flag somewhere in Midtown. I think it was like 43rd and Lexington because that's right near the UN building. So it makes sense the UN flags would be set up there, especially on a holiday weekend. And yeah, he took the American flags down. And the UN flags down. And that warrants draconian action on free speech. Like everything they cite to make it sound like things are getting really crazy and out of control. There was a rally outside Columbia University this afternoon. Russell was there filming. Did anybody get beat up?
Just the guy who was trying to charge $4 for a slice.
Exactly. Yeah.
That guy took a little smack. A little smack in the mouth. For
well,
that.
It is New York City, but other than that, it was fine. Yeah, but they always go, "Oh my God, he tried to take a flag down."
No, no, of course not. And they made a point of saying before the march started. First, it was the rally, and then we were marching around Columbia. And she said when she made her announcement about how to march, she said, "Don't take the bait. There are a lot of provocateurs. They're going to try to provoke you. They want that kind of a reaction. Don't take the bait. So she's already saying, like, don't get violent. Don't get physical. Right?
Exactly.
And I mean, anytime I've gone to these rallies today, there was no counter demonstration that I saw. There were no Zionists who showed up. But when I went on the 8th, all the bad behavior I saw was on the other side. I didn't see any of it from the Palestinian cause side of the street.
Yeah, so here is Kathy Hochul. Here is the video of the governor herself rolling out these new surveillance efforts.
Also, we're very focused on the data we're collecting from surveillance efforts, what's being said on social media platforms. And we have launched an effort to be able to counter some of the negativity and reach out to people when we see hate speech being spoken about on online platforms. Our media analysis, our social media analysis unit has ramped up its monitoring of sites to catch incitement to violence, direct threats to others. And all this is,
I mean, this reading makes me think someone gave a direct threat to you.
Our strong commitment to ensure that not only do New Yorkers be safe, but they also feel safe.
Now, hate speech, right? They want to sniff out hate speech. I would love to ask her if the IDF spokesman who've called the Palestinian people animals on repeat occasions, if that constitutes hate speech. So if the IDF spokesman who referred to the Palestinian people as human animals, if he lived in New York, would you police his social media? Would you take those posts down? Is that hate speech? Is that something that you're worried about? I wonder what her answer would be. Let's go back to the article real quick, though. Governor Hochul said her announcement followed a meeting with the state's Jewish leaders, local law enforcement, and federal authorities to combat hate crimes. She noted that residents across New York are, quote, living in fear since the October 7th Hamas invasion of Israel. Well, you know who are also living in fear? Babies at Al-Shifa Hospital. I'd say they're living in quite a bit of fear now. It's painful to me as the governor of this great state that has been known for its diversity and how we celebrate different cultures, different religions, different viewpoints. It's painful to see the cruelty
not on
with
your
which New
watch.
Yorkers are treating each other, the governor said. Everywhere from college campuses to our streets to schools to playgrounds. Playgrounds? I was a parent helper at my kid's daycare today. They weren't debating this on the playground. I don't know. Maybe that was an outlier. They're entering their houses of worship. I told you as soon as this started, I said, if you thought the censorship around the pandemic was bad, around Ukraine was bad, you have not seen anything yet. This is the issue that will kick this into overdrive. And it has so much to the point where beyond social media, I mean, that's what she's talking about now. But they're banning student protest groups from universities, Columbia University, where Russell was this afternoon. But social media especially, because now, obviously, we are seeing the message get out about the reality of Gaza on social media. And so there is going to be a massive clampdown on speech. As I told you, the day this happened, I said, the censorship wave is going to be like nothing you've ever seen.
I think they're going to try. I don't think they're going to be nearly as successful as they were with COVID, because the cat's out of the bag, and you just don't have the public support for those moves that you did around COVID.
Right.
A lot of people, they were scared shitless, and they just bought into it. Right, they're locked up in their houses. This is something again.
Well, it's also
only
easy
really
to buy into it because COVID, it's a germ, it's biochemistry.
Right.
No one really knows
freaks people
about
out.
it, right. But also no one knows about it. It's biochemistry. It's
you
medical
could tell people
science.
anything.
You can tell people anything. This you can't bullshit around this. Everybody sees images of the hospitals and the ambulance envoys being bombed and the refugee camps being leveled. This is easy.
So this is why I say I don't think they're going to be successful. They've lost control of the narrative. Speeches like this, you know what this is? This is to keep money coming in from the Jewish lobby. That's what this is. And actually, you know what? I need to correct myself. The Zionist lobby.
Yeah, the Israel lobby. Yeah.
This is to keep the money coming in from the donors. You can't actually do this. I mean, you could monitor it. Anyone can monitor what's going on online. It's not actionable. What are you going to do? I mean, unless somebody's making a violent threat, that's already illegal.
It's already illegal to make threats.
You already
Right,
can't
exactly.
do that. So what are you going to do? You're going to try to arrest somebody for saying from the river to the sea? Like this is, they want to pull that semantic trick where they can claim that as hate speech, but it's not going to work. It's not going to work. What are you going to do? You're going to lock up all these children of privilege from Colombia?
Right.
That's not going to happen, right? There's the same thing that happened with Vietnam. You had too many people out in the streets for the establishment narrative to be sustainable. It's just not sustainable. They lost control of this in like 48 hours. It's like they never had control of it. It's not even like there was a shift. People immediately kind of leaned towards the Palestinian side.
Yeah, indeed. Indeed. Kathy Hochul, governor of New York, is not the only one looking to clamp down on online speech. Presidential candidate and now runner-up to Donald Trump in most new polls, Nikki Haley, or should we say, I forget her actual name, and that will be relevant considering the point she's about to make. Here's Nikki Haley on Fox News talking about new standards that need to be set for social media companies.
The first thing we have to...
Sorry.
Hang on one second before you play that. So where did you see that, James? Was that, I guess I was on TV in California.
Oh, that's interesting.
I guess some news camera must have picked me up. Interesting.
Interesting. Here's Nikki Haley.
When I get into office, the first thing we have to do, social media accounts, social media companies, they have to show America their algorithms. Let us see why they're pushing what they're pushing. The second thing is every person on social media should be verified by their name. That's, first of all, it's a national security threat. When you do that, all of a sudden people have to stand by what they say, and it gets rid of the Russian bots, the Iranian bots, and the Chinese bots. And then you're going to get some civility when people know their name is next to what they say, and they know their pastor and their family member's going to see it. It's going to help our kids, and it's going to help our country.
Okay. Well, first of all,
she's a fucking nightmare, this one, man.
Oh yeah, no, she's horrible. I mean, she's horrible. I mean,
I would take Donald Trump to paraphrase an old DNC speech. I would take Donald Trump in a wheelchair over Nikki Haley on a horse.
Yeah, no, she's an absolute nightmare. And it's okay. So there's, first of all, a couple different things there. Number one, as most people know by now, but not all, Nikki Haley's name is not Nikki Haley. Nikki Haley's name is Nimarata Nikki Randhawa Haley. Haley was born Nimarata Nikki Randhawa. Okay, so I guess she would have to run for president under that name. I mean, if you're going to uphold those rules for social media, shouldn't you have to use your legal name to run for president? I would think so. But also, a lot of the reason why people come up with screen names and usernames online is because they don't want to get fired from their jobs or canceled, in other aspects of their life for saying things online. That's part of protected speech practices, customs, norms, right? Like you don't really have to be accountable in public for your social media posts as a person, as a human being. If you threaten somebody, if you break a law, your personal information is on record with those social media companies, right? So if you go by, Jackass 415 and you threaten somebody and legal action needs to be taken against you, those social media companies have your name on file. You need to give your name and date of birth.
You can't just
to set
sign
an
up.
account.
Exactly.
Right, but that doesn't have to be publicly displayed. That information can be gotten if there is a legal problem where they need that information. And then the second part, obviously, she is not. Her name is not Nikki Haley herself, which makes this extra special coming from her. And
also,
third,
I mean, and the troll community is not going to stand for that either.
Right.
I mean, that's a very very broad identity group.
It is,
and they will fight for their right to troll.
Yes, you don't want to get on the wrong side of them. That is a tough line.
They all live under one big bridge.
But the other thing about Haley, and this thing, I guess you can't really make this point about her because she was she was never really a populist right person. She's a neocon right winger who were never committed to free speech of any kind. This is one of the things that Ramaswamy has called her out for. Trump, I don't really know where he stands on this. He kind of just takes a hands-off approach to these things. I haven't heard him chime in. But yeah, I mean, just obviously she's horrible. I mean, she's absolutely horrible. She's the one where, if it's her against Biden, there is no lesser evil. They're equal.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The lesser evil is whatever country will give you citizenship with very little requirements.
Yeah, right. Exactly. That would be the only lesser evil there, for sure. All right, let's take a Rumble rant here. Putzmouse says, you guys are awesome. Well, thank you for coming to the new stream and hitting us up. Thank you, guys. 317 over in the Rumble chat. I just deleted the previous stream, which was the false start stream. That may have
somebody said to put the link in this chat. I don't know.
Well, we don't need the link in the YouTube chat, but the link.
Yeah, we don't, right?
Yeah, I mean, because you guys are now. If you go over to rumble.com/do-dissidents, it's the only stream active. For a minute, there was a dummy one that was the aborted stream, but now the people seem to be finding their way here. So that's all good. We have 970 of you folks here in the YouTube chat, 315 over on Rumble. Please hit that like button. Please hit that follow button. If you're over on Rumble, smash that like button because we were up to 58 likes on the old stream. And then it conked out on us. But we thank you all very much for being here. These bitches want Nikes. Thank you for the $5. The other morning, I was trying to ask you, you said the super chats were giving you a hard time the other morning, if you think RFK will steal a significant amount of votes away from Trump. We talked a little bit about this on the Post-Duopoly show yesterday. I have long said that I think RFK will take more votes from Biden than he will from Trump for two main reasons. Number one, Biden's base is much less loyal to Biden than Trump's base is to Trump. And so Biden's voters are more persuadable in terms of jumping ship for someone else. Trump's base tends to be a lot more loyal. But number two, RFK has called the NRA a terrorist organization. RFK is an environmental lawyer. RFK is pro-choice. RFK is, for the most part, a pretty mainstream liberal. He has a few issues where he strays from liberal orthodoxy, but on balance, there's really no reason for a Trump supporter to choose RFK over Trump. They spoke highly of RFK when he was running against Biden, just like they spoke highly of Bernie Sanders in 2016 because he wasn't running against Donald Trump. He was a way to undermine the Democratic frontrunner. And so, when you are disrupting the Democratic Party, a lot of right-wingers will speak highly of some of the more populist left candidates, or in RFK's case, more of a libertarian left kind of thing. But if you run against them, why would they vote for you when they got them? They already have a candidate.
Now you're the second coming of Stalin.
Yeah, exactly. Abiding, thanks for the 99 cents. Appreciate that very much, my friend. Thank you, guys, for your donations. Where's Skill? Thanks for the $5. Libs believe in nothing. At least Zionism is an ethos. Say what you want about rabid Zionism, dude. At least it's an ethos. Yes, reference to my Lebowski shirt. So thank you for that very much. Let's move on to segment number 3. So the United Auto Workers Union, the UAW, or now as we're calling them, the Rabid Zionist United Auto Workers Union, the RZUAW, since they shouted down a Free Palestine protester at an Illinois event with Joe Biden. What was that, a week ago? Yeah. That's a nice little joke, but in all seriousness, and this is a point that Jimmy made when we were on his show, like the union workers who would show up to a Biden event are the libbiest union workers, right? And so maybe we shouldn't paint the whole union with a broad brush, but not a good look, I'll say. Not a good look for the UAW to be shouting down ceasefire protesters and chanting, "We love Joe," just because what? He didn't have the Pinkertons crack your head on the picket line? Like, what did he do besides that to actually get you a good deal? But anyway...
Well, the first, I believe it's the United Postal Workers Union, right? They're the first major union to come out for a ceasefire. I think it's the Postal Workers Union.
I didn't hear anything about that. We could have done a segment on that if that were true. Maybe we'll do that Friday.
I might have sent it to you during my nightly 4 a.m. wake up for a half an hour.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, maybe I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But it looked that as though UAW had come to a deal that was agreeable to most members with all of the big three automakers. But right now, it seems as though those talks may have, highlight, hit a bit of a snag. So here's why the UAW's record deals with GM, Ford, and Stellantis aren't getting full support. Record meaning record-making deals, not record deals. They don't have a music contract with GM, Ford, and Stellantis.
The last hit was "Take This Job and Shove It." That's 40 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. The United Auto Workers achieved record contracts with the Detroit automakers following contentious talks and roughly 6 weeks of targeted labor strikes. But not all of the union's members are satisfied with the tentative agreements. The deals, which were recommended for ratification by UAW leaders, were on pace to pass as of Tuesday morning, but support is narrowing. The agreements have received notable rejections at major Ford Motor and especially General Motors plants in recent days. Workers at Chrysler owner Stellantis are still in early voting, but have so far largely backed the contract. At least 3 major assembly plants representing the 9,730 or 21% of GM's 46,000 UAW represented employees have voted against the pact. They include 61% at Lansing Delta Township in Michigan, which builds Buick and Chevrolet crossovers, 67% rejection at Cadillac and GMC crossover plant in Spring Hill, Tennessee, and 52% opposed at GM's Flint, Michigan truck plant. A handful of other smaller plants also have voted against the deal. So here's just a breakdown of the deal with some of the hits and some of the misses. So the UAW's tentative agreements with automakers include a 25% wage increase, including 11% upon ratification, reinstatement of cost of living adjustments to pay, so that's COLA, a 3-year progression to top wages instead of 8 years, that's big, obviously, billions in new investments, and the inclusion of some battery workers who would come on board as union workers. Now, some of the targets they did not hit were the 40% in general wage increases. So they settled for less than 30, even though they wanted 40. Complete elimination of wage and benefit tiers, so there are still tiers. They gave up on the 32-hour work week. That was a big push by Sean Fain. And post-retirement health care coverage and traditional pensions for all. So when you look at that, the deal really wasn't as great as they made it sound when they first got those offers. Sean Fain, who spoke Tuesday during a U.S. Senate committee hearing, has continuously said UAW members are the highest power in the union and will ultimately decide whether the deals ratify. But Fain last week conducted an online broadcast in an attempt to smooth over some concerns, including about COLA, bonuses, and other issues. I truly believe these are record contracts and are a major victory for our movement, Fain said Wednesday amid voting. There were many in the media and in the corporate class who were saying we didn't know what we were doing, and they thought we'd never get a deal, but then we got all 3. I was one of those. I'm not in the media or the corporate class. Neither is Shama Suwant. We also suspected that the sort of, stand-up strike strategy was not the way to go. And like I said, at the time, and even now, I don't claim to be a labor organizer who knows better than them, but it just struck me as something that would not be as effective as striking everywhere all at once. Then they got a deal that looked good, and so it looked like we had some egg on our face. And now you realize, well, they only got the 25% when they asked for 40, the 32-hour work week, and the health care after retirements, that, not being included, that seems pretty major. Keller, who ran for president against Fain but supported him during a runoff election against incumbent UAW President Ray Curry, said he also has concerns over consolidation of Mopar parts facilities, potential layoffs in the future, and other language in the contract. What's going on here?
Goddamn Mossad. They're fucking all over us tonight.
Yeah, our tech is really failing us.
I'm gonna be found garroted with piano wire tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. We have one more slide there, but it's not loading properly.
They're outside cutting the cables right now.
Yeah, They are really fucking us tonight pretty hard. I don't know what the hell's going on. Let me see if I can get that over here. Sorry, folks. I'll find that in the back ends, the good old back ends. Let me get one more thing here. Here we go. I'll just read this on my end. Fain last week admitted to not achieving everything he wanted for UAW retirement, including pensions and health care. He said these benefits remain a target for future bargaining when the tentative deals, if ratified, expire on April 30th, 2028. Okay, so now he's saying, well, what we didn't get this time, we'll get next time, meaning in 5 years. But this was one of the reasons why this strike was so urgent, because they had to get things done now because it was going to be a long time before they had another bite at the apple. Same thing with the UPS workers.
Right. I think what's really happening here is they are trying to get back the last 40 years all at once. And that's where the resistance is coming from. They're trying to get a deal that is what you would have if labor had maintained its power all this time. But it hasn't. And that's how you've had this explosion in CEO pay versus pay of the workers. Now, we had another story that is kind of related we were looking at. Stellantis is firing or trying to buy out about half of their white-collar workforce. In other words, middle management. Why are they doing that? Well, to make up for the money that now they have to pay labor under these contracts. And that is what we have always contended, that the money is there. It's just a question of who gets it, right? They found a way pretty quick when they had to pay these workers. Now, this is the next step, and this is the thing they really don't want to do. Why don't they want to give them a 32-hour week? Why don't they want to give them health care after retirement? Because now you're going to have to start cutting the CEO pay. You're going to have to start cutting the CFO pay. Now you're going to have to start to bring the gap between worker wages and CEO wages back to where they used to be.
Right.
Where it was, 50 times? Not what it is now. It's just like 500 times what a worker makes. Yeah, they're trying to kind of bring the system back to the way it was before Reagan and his successors just have increasingly destroyed the labor movement and funneled all the money up to the CEOs and the stock and the shareholders. The only problem with this is if only the auto workers are doing it. Okay, so now you can't offer a competitive salary for CEOs only in this one industry. This has to be happening everywhere. You have to reset back to what the economy should have been without 4+ decades of neoliberalism.
Yeah, exactly. And so it looks like these contracts are going to get ratified, but you're seeing major sort of pockets of opposition, which suggests that maybe they didn't get the best deal that they could have. Now, look, this is not to say that they would have gotten everything had they did it another way, right? You could always second guess. You can never prove what didn't happen. It's a hypothetical, obviously. But now that you have Fain saying, well, we're going to take another shot at this in 5 years. We didn't get everything we wanted this time. That's singing a little bit of a different tune than he's sang in the run-up to these deals being made as he was rolling out different plants for workers to stand down at.
I mean, in 5 years, you're more likely to be digging through the ruins of your local supermarket for green beans that aren't irradiated. But, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
In theory, if the United States is not a smoking ruin, we'll go for this again in 5 years.
Yeah, right. Exactly. All righty, folks. We are going to take a little bit of a game break here to pitch our Patreon. Patreon.com/do dissidents is where you go to get your name up in lights on this show scroll. You can also get access to our Patreon, Substack, and Locals exclusive live streams, which are 2 per month. We did our first one last week Looks like we'll be doing our second one either next week or the week after. I'm not sure if we'll get to that before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving. We do have a couple of scheduling notes that we want to give to you guys about the Thanksgiving weekend. But when you sign up at patreon.com, you really help keep the show going. We have had a lot of new signups at Patreon, Substack, and Locals this week, which puts us, now we are between 430 and 440 new members. 500 is the goal we need to hit to add a fourth stream, a fourth weekly stream. So if you want to help us get us there, go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and sign up to support the show. We try to make the perks as worthwhile as we can. You can also go to dodissidents.substack.com, become a paid member there, or you can go to Locals, dodissidents.locals.com. Everybody watching over on Rumble, the Locals link is right under the screen, and so that makes it super easy for you. Not only does your support help censor-proof the operation, it helps us sort of guarantee that we will have a base of support and be able to keep doing the show no matter what fate should await us on these censorious tech platforms. But also now, and Russell has made this point in the past, and, when we were on with Jimmy, he said that YouTube is demonetizing a lot of his Israel-Palestine content. We don't even bother monetizing a lot of our Israel-Palestine videos that we put up because that opens you up to all kinds of censorship because it makes sense. The YouTube people are more sensitive about content that their advertisers are advertising on than they are about content that's not monetized. And so we just don't even pick that fight with them because, our clips don't generate a heck of a lot of ad money anyway, but, it adds up. Believe me, it adds up. And so going to Patreon, becoming a member at Patreon or Substack or Locals helps offset some of, those losses that we take on these videos because we monetize very few of the Israel videos. If you notice, if you watch any of those clips, you hardly ever see an ad play on them. And we understand that. So the Super Chats and the Rumble Rants are super helpful, obviously. But the best way to help us is to go to patreon.com/DoDissidents and become a member. And you get all those perks that we just mentioned. For doing that, our patrons, our paid Substackers, our Locals members are, as we always say, the backbone of the show. And so we thank you guys all very much for your support. Dave Dillerai over on Rumble for $10 says, read your latest article today. You've talked about these points before, but it was a real enjoyable read. Well done. Yes, Russell wrote a new article over on Substack. That's another reason why you should join our Substack. Even if you join for free, we're going to start writing articles again. Russell's new article was a big hit. Friend of the show, Matt Taibbi, actually shared it on his Substack notes.
Yeah. Jimmy Dore shared it.
And Jimmy Dore shared it as well on X. So
I just dropped it. I just dropped it in the chat. If anyone wants to check it out.
Yeah,
that was a fun one. That's the Frankenstein article I've been saying I've been working on.
Yep, that is out. And
I think the next
Jimmy
one
and Matt Taibbi, it's gotten a few thousand reads, so it's brought some action to Substack, which now puts pressure on us to start writing again because now we got subscribers on Substack based on that article. Now we have to write more articles.
Well, my Canada article, I'm like 2/3 of the way done with that one. And that's another literary comparison to Brave New World. Sorry, but our Canadian friends, although I suspect a lot would agree. But just to geek out for a minute, I am a longtime fan of Matt Taibbi's work. So to have him share that was the highest compliment I could imagine, to have Matt Taibbi share the article. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was amazing. Because I realized we kept getting all these Substack subscribers signing up like 1 minute after another. Like every minute or two I get an email. I'm like, what's going on? I mean, I know Jimmy shared it yesterday, but Substack...
That was a very high compliment, too. I got him to read. He said, I got to read now?
He said, I
was like, yeah, you got to
Give it a read.
But he shared it.
Yeah, he shared it, which was great. I mean, that got a lot of visibility, too. But fucking Elon Musk, another free speech hypocrite, throttles the Substack link. So even when you get, big accounts like Jimmy sharing those out, it's hard to get people to read a Substack off Twitter because the link doesn't display properly. Right. And then when they click it, it takes 5 seconds to load, Yeah. So, but anyway,
I
despite
mean,
those
but in
challenges,
the
it got
end,
out there pretty well.
Yeah, in the end, I got to say, because, man, we've been going back and forth a lot about Elon. I think everyone's got mixed feelings. One thing I think we can all say is if Dorsey had been running Twitter with the outbreak of this war, none of this stuff would be on there.
Yeah,
None of the content would be on there. So give the devil his due. It's not the free speech platform he promised, but it is certainly a lot better than what he took over.
It's freer than it would have been, especially under these circumstances. Yes, for sure. I know I'm a lot less nervous about being, my rude self on his platform than I am on here or on Facebook. I mean, I don't really use Facebook much anymore, but it's definitely better than it was from that standpoint, though obviously far from ideal. There was one other thing that I wanted to say about Substack. Yeah, if you join our Substack, we will post now articles there from time to time as well, audio podcasts, and it also functions as a newsletter. It tells you when and where we're going to be going live. So it'll be fun to start writing again. When we first started the project, it was mostly a blog with an audio podcast.
Right. But we did audio about the articles.
About the articles, yeah, exactly. And, the good thing about writing is that you're not reliant on Rumble and StreamYard not to fuck you up in the middle of writing an article. Whereas here, now we got to hold our breath to hope these exhibits work.
We got to hope the hamster doesn't die.
Yeah, exactly.
It's spinning the wheel that's keeping it going. That was credit to Extra Bullet. He made that joke earlier.
Yes, indeed. George Gunnell, thanks for the $5. I'll be voting in 24. Who do you favor, if not Cornell? Afro Man? I forgot about Afro Man. Yeah, he's running independent.
Yeah.
Pat Paulson, seriously, peace. Depends on where you're at. We talked about this on Post-Duopoly show yesterday, too. If Claudia Dela Cruz is on the ballot in New York, I might vote for her just because she's the left-wing anti-imperialist candidate who hasn't embarrassed her supporters by playing this weird musical chairs game about which party she's running in and who's going to be VP campaign manager, People's Party, Green, Independent. Then Jill Stein goes from being Cornell's campaign manager to he falls out of the party, then she runs. So far, we haven't had any drama from the Claudia Dela Cruz camp, and so I might just reward her with my vote in that circumstance. But she's going to have very limited access to the ballots, and so depending on where you are, you might not get that opportunity. It's not a question I think much about, honestly, at this point. The action now is like earlier in this afternoon, man. Columbia University, that's where the action is now. The action is about protesting, trying to bend these people to our will as best we can.
Okay, I thought so, and hopefully I'm not wrong about this. Isn't she the one that I got?
Isn't who the
one? Claudia Dela Cruz. Is it? Because I'm looking up her picture now. Isn't she? Because I saw her picture and I was like, hang on, she looks familiar. Isn't she the one that I did some footage of speaking at the Palestine rally on October 8th? Isn't that her?
It's possible. I don't know. It's possible.
I'm pretty sure that was her. She was the one who said, "You're wondering why a Puerto Rican is here because my people were colonized." It's in the cut I did of that rally.
I mean,
it looks like her.
Could be. Kaladin or Kaladin Cat Bless, thanks for the donation. Would you ever consider having contributors to your Substack so it's not just you two writing? Absolutely. In fact, we do want to get that started. Now that we have a big enough following, we can solicit submissions. We've printed some submissions, but yeah, absolutely. So if anybody does have article pitches, or if you have a piece that you wrote that you want to float by us, just send us an email. DoDissidents@gmail.com. Absolutely, we'd publish other writers. We've done it in the past. But back when we had a blog, it was mostly Russell and myself, but we had a few people who would, every now and then send us something.
I am told from a reliable source that, yes, that was Claudia Dela Cruz.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. That's interesting because I didn't recognize her. I haven't seen her much. I've seen pictures of her carrying her campaign banners and things like that, but that's a good sign that she was there, obviously.
Yeah, they're saying that she's Dominican. I could be As our illustrious second Bush would have said, I might be misremembering it, but she said something about her people being colonized. But I trust my back channel source who informs me that was her.
All right.
Yeah, we have somebody else here saying that was her. Yeah, that was her.
All right, we got some people in the chat. Kid Ulysses says, I'll write for you. Yeah, if anybody has articles or essays or anything, email them over. We're going to start publishing more written stuff for sure. Looking forward to that. Alrighty, Russell, you're up.
All right. So this is the kind of really entertaining culture war story that I'm known for. This is about well-known trans ratings agency Moody's downgrading the U.S. So
He's
they
kidding, by the way, because some of our audience might not even know what Moody's is.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, those hormone shots can make you moody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Moody's is one of the three major credit ratings agencies. So they just downgraded U.S. credit to negative, following others who have downgraded the U.S. At this point, all of the ratings agencies have downgraded the U.S. So ratings firm Moody's lowered its assessment of U.S. credit outlook from stable to negative Friday, underscoring America's worsening fiscal standing and the implications of political dysfunction. Moody's kept the U.S. at AAA, its highest rating, meaning it's not a full downgrade, but by lowering its outlook, the firm indicated the rating could slip in the future. Then the article gets a little bit into part of their thinking, including dysfunction in Congress. So we're just going to skip ahead a bit. This news comes after Fitch, another ratings firm, downgraded the U.S. credit rating from AAA to AA plus in August. S&P Global Ratings, the other of the three major credit ratings firms, downgraded the U.S. credit rating in 2011 during an earlier debt limit fight. These credit ratings assess how likely the ratings firms believe the U.S. is able to make good on its debt obligations, meaning these lowered ratings indicate lower confidence in the government's ability to pay, seemingly as a result of political dysfunction. Karine Jean-Pierre called Moody's decision Friday yet another consequence of congressional Republican extremism and dysfunction, which is true up to a point. Okay, so this is part of an overall picture. Moody's didn't really get into this side of it, but the same week they had a auction of treasuries. That's how they do it. They auction off the U.S. treasuries. And you'll have those auctions usually weekly. And they had a very weak response because U.S. debt is not seen as secure as it used to be, but also more to the point. Right now, the United States and the dollar are the bank that's too big to fail for the global economy. But they saw with Ukraine what that could mean in terms of the way the U.S. can exercise their control over the dollar against political enemies. So they have been really scrambling to de-dollarize, to gradually find a new economic system. So for now, yeah, they can still sell the treasuries, but the demand is lower. Countries are lowering their holdings of currency reserves in the dollar. The Chinese are pulling back on the amount of treasuries that they're buying. So that is all a part of these downgrades, and I am reading the Kelton book. I don't want to run afoul of our MMT people. I promised I would not offer an opinion on that until I finish the book. But I will simply say that our entire economy is built around the assumption of people buying our debt and the dollar being considered the most stable currency and the most desirable to hold. And these downgrades are, I think, foreshadowing a continued decline in that trust.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, in a way it's related, in a way it's not. But you must have seen the story. We might do this on Friday of Gavin Newsom cleaning up the streets of San Francisco for the Chinese
premiere.
Yeah. As a way of saying, hey, look, wait, what?
We're back, baby.
We're back, baby. We're not falling apart. We're not falling apart. The State of the Union is strong. Don't try anything. Don't try any of this de-dollarization. It's not working. I mean, this is now the second major agency to downgrade us, and that is an indication that the world is moving past us, which was, foreseeable. I mean, it's really been foreseeable for quite some time. People who have, been on this beat, like our friend Anis Shivani, who is a great writer who we used to publish on our blog from time to time. He's been tracking this for 20 years. And oddly enough, he claims to have predicted that somewhere between 2020 and 2030 would be the ultimate collapse of the United States as an imperial power. And he made that prediction shortly after 9/11, where you could kind of read the writing on the wall. And we really have not been able to change course since then. And so now you're seeing, a really historic drop in confidence in our power, both as a sort of political leader on the world stage, even as a military power on the world stage, and certainly as an economic power.
Yeah, I think Hedges nailed it right at like 2026. I could be wrong about that. And of course, MIT has this long-running program that claims civilization itself will collapse by 2040, and they recently revisited their model and found that they were ahead of schedule.
Oh, okay.
But those two things, they've been running this since like 1970. But
to them, it's already collapsed because now there are pro-Palestine protests on campus, and so it's already the jungle out there. That's it.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from MIT about this.
Well, the Jake Tapper interview was with an MIT student, I believe.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Was it? Okay. Yeah, I mean, but that tracks because the United States is Rome if Rome were everywhere, right? I mean, India didn't collapse because Rome did, right? China didn't collapse because Rome did. Most people probably didn't even know it happened. But we are such a central cog in the machine of the entire world's economic assumptions that the United States collapses like that. It's hard to imagine a smooth transition as we had from England to the United States.
Right, indeed. All righty, let's take a couple super chats and then we will move on, folks. Thank you very much for your contributions. Super chats and Rumble rants are all super helpful. Oh, should we plug our Give, Send, Go? Russell set up a Give, Send, Go.
Oh, yeah.
For recurring projects. So, folks, we did our fundraiser for our primary coverage, and we decided, since a lot of you guys were so great about that we would set up a sort of continuous special project fund because in addition to the primary coverage that we're going to do, we are going to do general election coverage. We also have documentaries that we're working on, ideas for not necessarily more documentary film projects like the Jose Vega piece, which, like I said on the last show, I'm holding because he's going to make a very big announcement when he is back in the States. He's out of the country until right before Christmas, so I'm assuming shortly after Christmas he's going to have a pretty big announcement to make, at which point it makes the most sense to drop that documentary right as he does that. But we also have some ideas for some special reports that will do some long-form video projects that would involve traveling to different parts of the country. And so Give, Send, Go /Do Dissidents is where you go for that. We were on GoFundMe. We're not on GoFundMe anymore. They screwed the gray zone. And so in principle, we are not dealing with them anymore. Give, Send, Go seems pretty committed to free speech. They advertise on Rumble, which is a free speech platform. So that's a good sign. And we've heard good things. And so if you would like to contribute to our continuing projects fund, givesendgo.com /Do Dissidents. One idea we had, we're not announcing this formally, but this is the kind of thing we are thinking about doing. we were thinking about making a trip to Dearborn, Michigan, and interviewing a lot of the Arab voters who have turned on Joe Biden. We think a couple of JOOs like us over there, seeing what our Arab brothers and sisters think might be quite a good idea. And so those are the kinds of things that we're exploring doing. And so if you go to givesendgo.com/do dissidents, that helps make that possible. So do the Patreon memberships, so do the Substack memberships. It's all super helpful. This is a really big time for this project. This really is taking over our lives at this point. Like, it is becoming hard to work in any other capacity.
I get like texts of like, you know, they call them jump balls, like whoever rings in first gets them. And I used to be
for a tour, you mean?
For a tour, and I used to be infamous. Like, how did you even respond that fast? Right. And now I'm just like, I just can't. I got a show tonight. It's, you know, but with that is purely for special projects, because we get asked sometimes, like, how do I donate just for that? That is set aside only as a special project budget fund. Right. That's it. So also we want to announce something very big came up for the middle of January. When you find out what it is, you will understand. So we had to shift around the primaries a little bit. We were going to do Iowa and New Hampshire. Now we are going to do New Hampshire and South Carolina. Right. There is a very good reason, and we will tell you very shortly, I would say within the next week, what came up for the middle of January.
Yeah, so we will tell you that when we can. We cannot say anything about it now, but it's pretty big, very big, and something that we obviously could not say no to. And so that is going to coincide with the Iowa caucus schedule. The New Hampshire primary is right after the Iowa caucuses. They formally announced that today. So I will be heading out to New Hampshire that next week. So it's really, I mean, we would have had 2 weeks in a row of traveling. Instead, we have 1 week of traveling for me in New Hampshire, and then Russell will be heading to South Carolina for the primary. Very good reason for that. We were still doing our 2 primary states, but we did have to shuffle the order around a little bit. But
for anyone who doesn't know, this was what our fundraiser was for, and our people came through really fast. I think within like a week, we raised money to go cover the primary states. We promised we were not going to be like the Turks with their investigative reporter project, or certain people promising to get a van who never got the van, maybe got some hookers and some blow. So, you know, we just shifted the states a little bit, but we got you.
Yeah, we got you. We're still doing 2 states. We're not backing out. We just had to rearrange the order. But that's how that's going to work. All righty. I think that catches us up on everything. Let's take a couple super chats here. Dwayne Vogel, UAW, the Union of Concerned Zionists. Yes, thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate that. Janice Anderson, thanks for the $1.99. Russell, that was definitely Dela Cruz. Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that.
That means, look, unless I'm wrong, I think I met her. Because you remember when I went over to, what are they called? I always forget. The People's Project?
The People's Forum.
When I went over there, I had a meeting about doing some political theater there, and I'm pretty sure I met her.
Interesting. Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Like, she wasn't the person I was meeting with, but I think she was there.
Maybe we should try and interview her. We'll say, hey, listen, the lane is wide open for credible left-wing independent candidates.
You're not kidding.
It's a rare breed nowadays. So you got a shot here with the New Dissidents audience.
We bring her on and say, okay, so listen, explain to me why Dave Chappelle shouldn't get my vote.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
It's
why
you or Dave Chappelle.
It's you or Dave Chappelle. Exactly.
So you better be a funny motherfucker.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough. All right, folks. Hold on. Let me just do something real quick. All right, beautiful. Looks like it's going to make it to the end of the slideshow this time. Otherwise, we'd have just canned this and done it on Friday. quick tech check, folks. Don't mind me. So it's been in the news for a few weeks now, really since October 7th almost, certainly the week following, that the sort of, lower level staffers at the State Department were quite unhappy with the Biden administration's response to October 7th, meaning they were very much doubtful of the merits of unconditional support for Israel and the State Department's own position of handling disputes with Israel in private. In other words, that famous Matthew Miller interaction with Max Blumenthal. Well, if we suspect Israel's violating international law, we will settle that with them in private behind closed doors. We won't make a big public spectacle out of it. As video and images keep coming out of Gaza showing the absolute horror that is day-to-day life there now since October 7th, and really before October 7th, a lot of people at the State Department have been voicing their displeasure. So finally, Axios reports, internal State Department memo blasts Biden U.S. policy on Israel-Hamas war. So we saw, his name was Josh Paul, I think. He offered his resignation a few weeks back. He was one of the people who was obviously moved to quit his post entirely based on dissatisfaction with Biden's policy. But as reporting said at the time, and now we know for sure formally, he was not alone. So Axios has this reporting. An internal State Department dissent memo accuses President Biden of spreading misinformation. Look at that. On the Israel, wow, you know you've pissed off the libs when they accuse you of misinformation. Because don't forget, this is the State Department. These are Biden State Department people. These are Democrats in good standing. That is quite the stone for them to throw. You know you really fucked up. You really stepped in it when they're giving you the misinformation business. On the Israel-Hamas war, and alleges that Israel is committing war crimes. Wow.
There's basically like The View calling you out on your bullshit.
Exactly. War crimes. That's strong language, because we talked about on our previous episode Emmanuel Macron calling for a ceasefire, but would not call out war crimes because of the legal implications associated with that charge. But no, according to this dissent memo, they are willing to say it like it is, that war crimes are being committed in Gaza, according to a copy of the memo obtained by Axios. Why it matters. Axios always phrases their shit like this. The scathing 5-page memo, organized by a junior diplomat who has suggested on social media that Biden's support of Israel has made him, quote, complicit in genocide in Gaza, offers a rare look at the raw divisions within the Biden administration over the Israel-Hamas war. The memo, signed by 100 State Department and USAID employees, urges senior U.S. officials to reassess their policy toward Israel and demand a ceasefire in Gaza, where more than 11,000 Palestinians have been killed in the war, according to Gaza's Hamas-controlled health ministry. Some of the memo's language echoes that of progressive activists in the U.S., whose anger and protests over Biden's handling of the war have rippled through the Democratic Party and created a new challenge for the president's 2024 campaign, the latest of many. Without offering a specific example, the memo accuses Biden of, quote, spreading misinformation in his October 10th speech supporting Israel, one of the signature addresses of his presidency. The memo also said that we strongly recommend that the U.S. government advocate for the release of hostages by both Hamas and Israel, citing the thousands of Palestinians being held in Israel, including those without charge. So pretty strong words from the State Department, but it gets worse. Biden administration staff sign open letter demanding ceasefire in Israel-Hamas war. This is White House staff. Hundreds of federal employees signed an open letter calling on the president to urgently demand a ceasefire and the de-escalation of the conflict through the release of hostages and provision of humanitarian aid. More than 400 employees of President Joe Biden's administration have signed on to an open letter demanding he pursue a ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war that has killed thousands of civilians thus far. Quote, we represent a coalition of Biden-Harris administrative political appointees and civil servants positioned across the domestic and foreign policy spheres. So this is in addition to the dissent memo at the State Department, working in federal agencies, departments, independent agencies, and the White House. The letter released Tuesday begins. Quote, we call on President Biden to urgently demand a ceasefire and to call for de-escalation of the current conflict by securing the immediate release of the Israeli hostages and arbitrarily detained Palestinians, the restoration of water, fuel, electricity, and other basic services, and the passage of adequate humanitarian aid to the Gaza Strip, it continued. The letter says that the signatories represent various backgrounds and faith and work in more than 30 departments and agencies. Two administration staff members who led outreach efforts for the letter told NBC News that since the letter was first circulated about 2 weeks ago, it has gained the signatures of senior and low-level administrative employees working across the federal government and in multiple countries. They include staff in the Departments of Commerce, Defense, Interior, Homeland Security, and the Executive Office of the President, among other agencies. The two staff members, who are political appointees, asked to remain anonymous out of concern about retaliation for speaking out against the administration's position. Listen to this sentence. They said those who signed the letter also remained anonymous out of concern for their job security and personal safety.
Yeah, that one was very interesting.
Personal safety?
Yeah.
I thought we beat fascism when we got rid of Donald Trump. I thought fascism wasn't a problem anymore. They're concerned for their personal safety, for signing a letter dissenting against Joe Biden's policy. The White House did not immediately respond to NBC News' request for comment. The letter is the latest edition.
They call it getting Epsteined.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah. The letter is the latest addition to growing calls on the Biden administration to demand a ceasefire and reassess its handling of Israel's war with Hamas. This is a quote. Every day you're going into work for this administration, then you're going to look at your phone, you're going to see the suffering that you kind of feel like you're causing. Wow. The suffering that you kind of feel like you're causing as a member of this government. A lot of people are no longer comfortable being silent, no longer comfortable being complacent in a way. That was a staff member who remained anonymous for fears of, like they said, not just professional retribution, but out of concern for their safety. Since the war began after Hamas's brutal attack on Israel on October 7th, several efforts have launched from within the government to push for the de-escalation of the conflict, including letters from hundreds of Biden's former 2020 campaign staff and Muslim and Jewish congressional employees. The congressional staff urged Congress to support a ceasefire in light of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim, and anti-Palestinian sentiment on the rise nationwide. Last slide. It's unfortunate that we're at this point, one of the Biden administration staff members told NBC News. Having hundreds and thousands of people come together within this administration and within Congress and say we are calling for a ceasefire, something that's so basic to just end human suffering. They are in alignment with 66% of the American people, by the way. The two are among what they said are many signatories with family and friends in Gaza, the West Bank, and Israel. Our loved ones are in imminent danger, and every single day waking up and not knowing what's going to happen is absolute hell. Imagine working for Biden. Some people who signed this letter work directly for the White House. Some in Homeland Security, some in DOD. Imagine being part of this administration having family members in Gaza. Imagine what that must be like. The dissonance of going to work every day and feeling like you are part of something that is actively harming people you love was expressed by so many people involved in this. I mean, that's as strong as it gets. I mean, you don't see stuff like that leaking out of the highest levels of government all too often.
This is why I often compare it to the Vietnam era. This is the last time you saw that kind of a break in the establishment, where you even had people like Daniel Ellsberg, right, turning on the establishment that he could have had a very good career in and taking those kinds of personal risks, certainly under Nixon, including with his safety. And I think the reason is the same reason. A part of Vietnam, it's sometimes discussed, but it's usually not focused on, is that it was the first time people really saw war on television. And they were seeing these horrific images of what was happening to the Vietnamese people, and they just couldn't stomach it. And the more of that they saw, the more they turned against the war. Now, America didn't really mess around too much with those kinds of large-scale foreign adventures again until Iraq. And by that time, they figured out how to work it. That's why we talked about this. That's why Fahrenheit 9/11 was so shocking when he showed images of Iraq, because you never saw them. You never saw them. They really managed to embed the reporters with the soldiers and control what they would see. It looked like a game of Missile Command, what you saw on TV. You saw it tinted green, and you saw some explosions, but it was like a video game. It was bloodless. You didn't really see what was going on in Iraq. This is the first real social media war. Although I will point out, we keep trying to get to, there's just so much news, and we don't want to neglect it. We keep trying to get to what's going on in Sudan. We keep trying to get to what's going on in the Congo. Nobody, frankly, really covered what happened in Yemen. And I do wonder, were there videos like that on social media and nobody cared because it wasn't Israel and Palestine, which is this very charged issue for a lot of people? I wonder, do they not have, are there not as many people with the phones to take those videos there?
Well, the story just wasn't as viral. You know, now it's a viral story. The story is front page everywhere. I mean, there may have been videos of, horrible things, happening in those places, but because the story wasn't front on everyone's mind, it just didn't get
nobody shared it
the
around.
shares. It didn't get right. Exactly.
This is the first time since Vietnam that people are watching what happens when you have a very superior, well-armed military power come in and unleash this kind of force on essentially civilians. And the same kind of Vietnam logic. Well, we had to destroy the village in order to save it. We don't know who's VC, right? The VC was hiding among them.
Right.
Same thing. And same reaction, because people as humans were empathetic. Yeah, I mean, we have our dark side, but most humans cannot stomach just basic human empathy and decency and compassion to see images of children and families killed like that. You can't help but put yourself in their place. And this is why you're seeing such a move to censor. But in the United States, because we have the First Amendment, it's very difficult for them to really find a proper premise for censoring this in the ways that they want to that would survive a court challenge. So they're trying to intimidate. They're trying to do task forces. They're trying to scare people. But you can't really stop people from saying this. They can go after the tech companies themselves, which I got to say, I haven't had trouble sharing anything on Facebook so far. And we talked about Elon. He's being pretty good about this so far. So yeah, I mean, what can they really do that would hold up in court?
Yeah. I mean, I think hopefully that holds up, right? I mean, I think and this goes back to what we were talking about with Hochul earlier. I think a lot of sort of proclamations of intent to censor are really just designed to score political points. To make it sound like we're doing all we can, right?
Right.
But the other level to this, obviously, as is mentioned in the article, is you got people, man, if you have friends or family in these places now, I mean, how do you do it? How do you do it? Like, it seems impossible to go along with this if you are that personally invested in it. But we will see how that plays out. Obviously, the State Department memo was something that we kind of sense was coming down the pike for a while, because we've heard rumblings of that for a few weeks. But this larger open letter was something that just kind of came out of nowhere. And wow, I mean, that's something you don't see all too often. All righty, let's go to some super chats here. We have a Rumble Rants, Pickle the Pirate. Thanks for the $5. Today in Censorship, Guardian deletes 2002 Bin Laden article because his critique of Israel was going viral on TikTok. memes are educating.
That is funny. That's really
themselves.
funny.
Thank you, Pickled Pirate. Appreciate that. Join Cy. Thank you for the $5. Imagine
We're gonna have to find that article and do a headline. Bin Laden misunderstood.
Yeah, right. Yeah, censored. Yeah, silenced. Yeah. Join Cy. Thanks for the $5. Imagine someone work having a monumental presidential campaign against Israel genocide instead of being a sissy like West. Yeah, imagine getting your shit together and being a real organized voice against this. There is an appetite for it. 66% of Americans favor a ceasefire. There's a story we're going to do on Friday. AIPAC just announced that they're putting $100 million into primarying the squad because apparently what was it? 9 people voted voted against Israel recently, and then back when they had before the war started, 9 or 10 people voted to call it a racist state. Apparently 9 is 9 too many. Apparently AIPAC needs every single person in Congress by the balls, to the point where they're willing to spend $100 million to get fewer than a dozen dissenters out of their way. Wow.
It puts us in a funny position. It's like on principle, you kind of feel like you have to support them. You know, I mean, I don't know. I don't know how you handle that in this space. Like, they are such disappointments. But Jesus, do you want AIPAC to have their way? That's a tough one.
I understand what you're saying. I don't think they're worth supporting, obviously. And so, look, I mean, if they lose, I think that's a lesson learned for anybody who wants to play this game. I'm not saying I'm rooting for them to lose, but I'd wash my hands of that. I wouldn't get involved. Look, I wish Rashida Tlaib luck against her challenger. I wish Omar luck against her challenger. Like, I'd certainly rather they win. But what are we going to invest in this again? I mean, that's insane.
No. We can't. That's why I'm saying I'm too honest, man. Like, I can't tell anybody. Yeah, man, you really need to get out there for these people. I can't get my heart in it.
Yeah. No.
But at the same time, you look at that, and it's like, those fucking scumbags going.
Well, you don't want AIPAC to get their way, obviously.
Well, of course.
But is it worth an investment in the squad? Yeah, no.
Or the Democrats generally.
Yeah, no, or the Democrats, right? Exactly. All right, let's go to a Rumble rant here. The scenario was planned. Israel will never confront Hamas on the ground, so they'll appear to have so much pressure.
Keaton is right winger.
They gotta stop. They gotta stop Bibi and the cowards leave. I know, cynical, but they got the North. Well, thank you, Chow. Appreciate that. All right, we got a couple more super chats. We'll read those in just a moment. I know we went a little out of order there. Sorry, the tech just had me a little flustered. All right, let's go to this one. This is a fun one. Different kind of story here, folks.
I'm just gonna say, no love for the squad in our chat.
Well,
people fuck them.
Well, why would
fuck them in the ear?
Well, that's what I think. I mean, look, if you want people to show up for you, you got to show up for them. That's the breaks, man. That's the way it fucking goes. I mean, do I want AIPAC to have their way? No, but that's as far as I can go. As far as I can go.
Get your fucking shine box.
It's as much support as I can give. Yeah, exactly. Because what's the return on investment? I mean, it would suck to see AIPAC have their way. But AIPAC's going to get their way, big picture anyway.
Yeah,
and what's the return on investment for going to bat for them? There's no return on investment there. All right, this is kind of a different story. We don't hear much from the Australian Press Club, the National Press Club of Australia, here in this show. So big shout out to our Aussie audience. And we do have some Aussie audience members, some Aussie dissidents. So this one is for you. Francesca Albanese, UN Special Reporter for the Occupied Palestinian Territory, addressed the National Press Club of Australia on why previous approaches to the Israel-Palestine conflict have been unsuccessful, and she also makes her case to the roomful of journalists why we need to recenter our common humanity in the discourse around these issues around this one particular most urgent issue, especially. So here's kind of a little overview of what she said. This is a minute that I thought represents her argument pretty well. And oddly enough, she makes the exact points that Russell and I made about how Zionism and Judaism are being very cynically conflated in a way that actually endangers, not emboldens, but endangers many Jewish people who don't support the Israeli policy. So there's a little brief minute of her speech to give you an idea what this was about.
Years' time. If in 75 years' time the international community has still to realize what the Nakba is, here is what it is, televised, under our watch. The current reality epitomizes how the international community has so epically failed to promote peace and security for both Palestinians and Israelis, premised upon international law and the end of Israel's 56-year-old occupation, and the realization of Palestinian self-determination and freedom. Israel's government and its supporters have spun narratives that portray the Palestinians as an existential threat to the Jewish people and the Palestinian struggle for basic rights as a direct challenge to Israel's very existence. And let me say, many of these tropes resonate so strongly in this country as well. And unconscionably, this is also harming the Jews around the world, the Jews in Australia as well, who might find themselves targeted because they're associated as Jews to the actions of Israel.
It's exactly, pretty much word for word, what we said.
Yep.
That you're not emboldening Jews, you're not empowering Jews, you're actually endangering Jews by putting out there that all Jews support what Israel is doing right now, because most people oppose what Israel is doing right now. And so if you link most Jews to the policy of the Israeli state, that's going to turn public sentiment against Jewish people like Russell and myself. So that's exactly almost word for word what we said. Do you want anything else before we let the rest of this go?
Well, yeah, today at the Columbia rally, that was fascinating because there was a group, rabbis for Palestine. I'm not sure exactly what they're called. But that was really the point they were making. Their take was Zionism is a political nationalist project that's only been around for about 125 years, that hijacked their religion, that used their religion as a shield for a nationalistic political project that has nothing to do with Judaism. And that has really tarnished the image and reputation of Jews and Judaism around the world. One other really, I spoke to one of them. Hopefully we're going to have them on. One of the really interesting points they made was at a time when the Christian world did not welcome Jews, they said the Muslim world took them in. And that was where they were able to live without being murdered, as they often were in the Christian world at that time, which is a complete inversion of the rhetoric you get in the West about that history. But of course, that is historically true. But in more recent history, and I've heard this from other Jews from the region, they lived peacefully with Muslims. They were talking about, we used to babysit each other's children. Yes, we were of very different religions, but everybody got along until the Zionists came. When the Zionists came, that's when you started to have this trouble. And they were saying around the 1920s, that was when the Zionists really started coming into the region and trying to take over the land, which created tension for Jews throughout the Muslim world. So that was very interesting to hear. Particularly, there was one older rabbi. He's been interviewed on Al Jazeera. I saw that today. He was very passionate. You'll see the video of it Friday. But he was very wounded. He was really arguing our religion is against stealing. It's against killing. That's the 10 Commandments. You don't go and steal from these people, steal their land and kill them. That's against the religion. That has nothing to do with the religion. So that is definitely something that I think as part of our show, we really want to get across to people. Like this is Zionism is not Judaism. It's a, as they said, that's a very good way to put it. It's a political project that hid behind Judaism for its own ends.
Exactly.
Correcting this requires a rehumanization of the discourse itself. And I'm so happy to speak to journalists because you have a great deal of homework to do in this respect. And in...
All right. So, yeah, there you go. I mean, that gives you kind of a broad overview of the character of the speech. She went on for about 20 minutes, and then she started taking questions from journalists, including one interjection here by the moderator where she really takes him to school.
When special rapporteurs have used the word genocide, there is a risk of genocide. We have looked not only at the genocidal intent, but based on previous practice, the reality on the ground, the reality on the ground is that there is a risk of genocide being committed by Israel and also the capacity to do that.
When you say they have, I mean, if they wanted to, it would probably be done, to be blunt about it. Yes, it's a dire situation for civilians, but Israel did say, civilians, please leave, this is where we're targeting. So that wasn't them actually targeting civilians at that point.
As my friend Daniel Levy told the BBC journalist, and I beg your pardon, I don't mean to be rude, but can you really keep a straight face as you ask me this question? I will answer.
If you're asking civilians...
I will answer the question. Okay. There is nowhere to go. Because for those who are not familiar with the Gaza Strip...
barrel.
Yeah, exactly. And just to remind, I mean, it's right in front of your face, everybody, but this is a room full of journalists.
Right.
She has to answer this question to a journalist. It says right behind her, National Press Club of Australia. The guy says, well, if they were committing a genocide, wouldn't they have done it already? I mean, we've gotten, without calling out specific audience members or former audience members, shall we say, people are like, well, if they were going to commit a genocide, they'd have done it already.
Yeah.
You're aware that the Holocaust took more than 4 weeks, right? You understand that took some years, right? They're on pretty good pace to commit what we would call a genocide here in the sane community. Right. And so it's just amazing that he would even ask that. But yeah, she shuts him down pretty well, as you could already tell.
Is a 300 square kilometers piece of land. Inhabited, it's the most crowded place on earth. And it has been, when I say carpet bombed, this is what 6,000 bombs per week do to an area which is so crowded. And this is why a war was not the response. But you know what, Tom? We already knew, because this is the sixth war that Israel has waged against Gaza. There was one in 2008, 2009, 2012, 2014, 2021, 2022. Already 1,000 people had been killed, including 1,000 children. How did diminish the influence of Hamas over the people under blockade, and how it diminished the capacity of harm Israelis?
It's another great point. There have been 6 wars. There was a war in 2021. We covered it on our audio show. Did that neutralize Hamas? Apparently not. Apparently not. Have they gotten any closer to eliminating their quote-unquote enemy? Apparently not. Once again, this is the thing Russell always brings up, and it's a line that I always try to get right, but never do. What is it? Contradictions, premises?
There are no contradictions. When you think you found a contradiction, check your premises.
Exactly. Why do I keep stumbling? That's not that hard.
It's
I don't
von
know.
Clausewitz.
I have a mental block for that quote. But yeah, if they were really trying to eliminate the terrorist threat, why haven't they? Why haven't they? They've certainly killed enough people. And this is why we said at the beginning that this is going to be perhaps an extinction level event for Gaza. Because when Netanyahu said that the enemy, right, is going to feel this worse than they've ever felt it before. This is going to be unprecedented. We knew what that meant. We knew that meant genocide because they had already committed such horrific violence that in order for this to be an escalation, there's only one way you can describe such an escalation in violence, which would be genocide. They've killed thousands of Palestinians over the years. And so for him to say, well, they've not seen nothing yet, well, then you know what's coming. And as she puts it, all of this death, all of this carnage, even before this past month, apparently didn't do anything to stop Hamas, right? So what is it really about? Is it really about Hamas? Of course not. Of course not. If it was really about Hamas, they wouldn't have propped up Hamas in the first place. This is about getting land, however possible. They're obviously willing to kill as many people as it takes to get that land.
Well, Jimmy, the other night, I've got to research this more myself. He did something about the natural resources that are under Gaza that are worth billions of dollars, and Israel
about half a trillion.
Yeah, Israel has never been a player in the energy space. You know, a lot of people have always joked about that. You know, God gave them the one part of that land that doesn't have oil under it.
Right.
So that would kind of correct that deficit with that land. They propped up Hamas so that one day they could do this. You have to understand that part of the story to understand the context of what's happening now. They never wanted a stable Palestinian state. They wanted a state that they could brand as terrorist so that they could do exactly what they're doing now. This has been a slow motion genocide and displacement of the Palestinian people. They've been doing it slowly and strategically so that they would have plausible deniability in the eyes of the world community regarding what their true intentions are. Well, what can we do? You know, you create the conditions that eventually they're going to strike back. And when they strike back, you can use it as a justification to genocide the population. And then you say, look at what they did.
Right.
Palestinians have been left with nowhere to go, and all the more, all humanitarian actors involved or having a word to say on this have said that an evacuation order imposing 1.1 million, the obligation to flee is absurd. It's unlawful.
That's a good point, too. Right? The order to flee is unlawful. I mean, what kind of order is that? Well, you get out of here because we're just going to level the whole place.
Right.
That's not a legitimate directive.
Look, I was in Manhattan during a blackout one night, and that was total chaos. People trying to get out, and there were no bombs falling on anybody. And
you didn't have to walk with your hands up so you wouldn't get sniped. No. As they do. They can't take anything. They can't take any possessions with them on the 7-kilometer walk south because they have to keep their hands up in the air. Otherwise, they'll be fired upon. So if you're carrying a bag and you don't have your hands up, you are a legitimate target, apparently.
Right. No, they're fish in a barrel. And this is basically saying, fish, move to the other side of the barrel or you're going to get shot. And then you shoot on the other side of the barrel, which is not talked about enough either.
Right.
They're actually bombing in the South.
Right. The exits.
That was how that reporter lost his family that we showed a couple of weeks ago. So they're not even honoring that. They're bombing refugee camps. It's just too much. It's just too much to maintain this Zionist propaganda that to be against this horrific, fascist, evil apartheid state is anti-Semitic. For one thing, because of people like us. There are just too many Jews saying not in my name for that narrative to be sustainable. And then they'll try to say, as the woman said on the Dana Bash interview, well, we're not saying criticizing the state of Israel is anti-Semitic. Yes, you fucking are. Yes, you are.
Of course you are.
Yes,
the fuck out of here. Yeah, we just dropped that clip today. That's one of my favorite clips we ever put out, actually. I think that one came out good. Yeah, it was because you have to just take on those claims head on.
Right.
You know.
Right.
Including the from the river to the sea thing, where we read from the Ben Burgess article, which was very well argued. You know, it's important to address those those things head on. Especially as Jews, I feel extra responsible to do that.
Right. And actually, that was one of the things that the rabbi said today, that we as Jews have a special responsibility, and we do, because no one can speak out on this with the authority that we can.
Exactly. All right, let's take some super chats here. ARJ 1997, thank you very much. Did you see the JD segment about the West's true reason for keeping the Israeli campaign ongoing? Colonialism, land grab, capitalism. Yeah, this is what Russell was just talking about.
Yeah.
Oil and natural gas in the West Bank, Gaza. Imperialism, construct a new canal through Gaza. Yeah, I haven't watched that segment yet, actually, but I certainly will. And, I'm sure there's a lot of truth to that. There always is, right? I mean, when resources are being contested, that's always a reason that you have to take very, very seriously. So I'm sure that's a big part of it. I don't think that's the only part of it, though. If you look, this has been an ongoing project of Zionism since 1940, since really before 1948, since the creation of Israel. But 1948 is when we could start to see, okay, that's the first map. And then from there you see a sequence of expanding territory and shrinking Palestinian territory. So I'm not diminishing whatever impact that these natural resources might have. I'm just saying this has been something that they've been wanting to do for decades anyway.
I had, I'm really resisting it because, the most annoying, just absolutely psychopathic people that you're associated with on social media, eventually you challenge them and then they block you and you don't get to see what people like that are saying. So I have this one like foaming at the mouth Zionist that I just have to resist that urge. And I think they went to the march. And the fucking delusional post. You know what you didn't see? You didn't see people gleefully celebrating violence and people being killed. What the fuck are you talking about?
We will pour cold water all over that in
that is well, and you
just
also
a few minutes.
These people because I got that from the Israeli soldiers that I interviewed, or former soldiers that I interviewed on October 8th. The two women, the psychos. It's this narrative that Zionists tell themselves that they're morally superior, and what you can see that in the fact that they don't celebrate the deaths that they cause. They're not about that life. And it's like, dude, there are hundreds of videos of Israelis talking about Arabs as animals, how they need to be killed, celebrating the death of, and these people, like, I don't think they're lying. I think they're insulated. They just never see that. They don't associate with anyone who would ever show that to them.
Right. Exactly. And the media obviously doesn't show it to them. And could you imagine if threats were made the other way from the other side? If pro-Palestinian protesters got in the face of the pro-Israel protesters and screamed the kind of vile things that we've heard coming from the Zionists or threatened them, that would be all you see. It'd be everywhere. Tusker, thanks for the $5. Want to recommend a book on the Forgotten War, the Korean War, Immovable Object by A.B. Abrams. Very extensive and tons of footnotes and citations. Well, thank you, Tusker. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Did you guys see JD today saying elites are coming for him? I didn't see that part. I saw the Greenwald interview today, but yeah, he told us yesterday that they're coming for him.
We told him he needs to dye his hair blonde in advance so that they pass over him.
Yeah, right. Yeah, we had a little inside knowledge in that. Yeah, I heard about that, but I haven't watched the show today beyond the Greenwald segment. It was cool to see. It was that was like an old school Jimmy Dore episode today. You got Glenn Greenwald, and I think Aaron Mate was on too. Those guys haven't been on in a while. It's
like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, where they're all trying to pass themselves off as pod people. You gotta dye your hair like Kyle and dress like an out of work pimp like he does, and then they think they already got you, and then they go to the next host.
Yeah, exactly. Derek, thank you for the $20. It's very generous of you, my friend.
Thank you.
I think Biden wants genocide in Gaza to last long enough for USA to get more ships in position to start a war with Iran, blaming Iran for attacks on illegal U.S. bases in Syria by groups Iran doesn't have full control over. Interesting theory. Iran may make a move on Israel, right? And that could be That could be the short way of doing it. But certainly an interesting take. Thank you for that. Axel, thanks for the $5. Imagine the narcissism necessary to believe that Israel could just stamp out Palestine if it really wanted to. No surprise from the West. Well, the thing is, I mean, this is what gave them the pretext to just do it. Because as we will see, we're going to cover the rally, the Israel march next. You will see a lot of signs to the effect of wipe them out, pretty much. They're not very shy about it. Bonzo Beans, thanks for the $1. Did Stephanie Kelton invite you to her Florida beach house? Not I.
Not us.
Not I.
Not us.
Do dissidents per sempre. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. Appreciate
Thank you.
Those donations. Thank you for the Rumble rants over there. Shout out to producer Jake for fielding those Rumble rants for us. All right, let's move on. All right, folks, there was an Israel march, a march for Israel. Russell branded it the Million Murderer March. I thought it was good. Here it is. Hollapalooza, as I'll brand it, in Washington, D.C., on the National Mall. I almost made that joke a minute ago, and then I'm like, no, save it because we got to clip it for the segment. Slyly put that in there. Here's the crowd. As you can see, you know, one thing I pointed out, I made this joke on RBN yesterday. If this were summertime, you could sell a lot of sunscreen to this crowd here if you were out vending. You notice this is probably the whitest rally crowd I've ever seen.
I thought they weren't white. Didn't they say they weren't white?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot. All right, so here's some of the lovely people.
Didn't they say we're erasing all the brown-skinned Zionists by saying that?
Yeah, maybe.
No, I've seen on the TikToks.
Oh yeah, you've been on the TikToks. Yeah, I haven't been on the TikToks
you get
in a while.
these
I haven't heard
Zionists
those
saying
arguments.
there are Chinese Jews. There are African Jews. Yeah, but who's running shit? Because I don't see those fucking people actually running that country.
No.
And I've heard a lot, and look, I'd have to look into it more. I can't speak knowledgeably about it, but I've heard from a lot of people that those Jews are heavily discriminated against in Israel.
Yeah. So here's the rally crowd, and let's just take a sampling of signs and demonstrations from the rally. All right, bomb the shit out of Hamas, borrowing from Trump's bomb the shit out of ISIS. You know, one thing you'll notice here, this is a very bipartisan audience here. A lot of Democrats and Republicans putting their differences aside and coming together on the issue that's really important, which is genociding an imprisoned population of brown people. But this guy bombed the shit out of Hamas. All right, at least he's targeting Hamas and not civilians. Oh, all right. Many Gazan civilians are Hamas in training. Okay, so that's a little worse. I have a feeling this is only going to get worse, Russell. I have a feeling I arranged these slides in order of least genocidal to most genocidal.
Well, that is very much the Vietnam argument.
Yeah. Well, yes, of course.
Yeah, they're all VC.
Dude, this guy. Civilians who praise the slaughter of Jews are not innocent. Okay, so now this guy is saying there are no innocent civilians. So first the first guy was bomb Hamas. Okay, fair enough. Next argument, well, a lot of Gazan civilians are Hamas in training. I don't like that very much. This guy, civilians who praise the slaughter of Jews are not innocent. Okay, so now there are no innocent civilians. There is no proportional response to Hamas. So now this person's saying even if there are innocent civilians, it's okay to kill them because we can't worry about proportionality. See what I mean, folks? This just gets worse and worse and worse. The worst one, let Israel finish the job.
Wow.
Oh, boy.
And
then this guy, who's this guy? Russell, he has a good excuse, right? He thinks he's, where does he think he is here?
He thinks he's at Woodstock.
That's right. John Fetterman. He thinks he's the one. Okay, so he has an excuse.
Well, he voiced his support.
Yeah. So there's a sampling of the crowd at the March for Israel.
Well, you didn't even play the song they were singing. That was a little ironic.
Yeah, I would say that's a little ironic for sure. All right, so we just got exposed to some of the crowd there just to give you a sense of who was in attendance that day. Now let's go to the speakers. Like I said, this was a bipartisan event. You had Democrats and Republicans coming together. We're going to hear from Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, Republican, and House Majority Leader, the Honorable Hakeem Jeffries, two bitter rivals who have had a lot of negative things to say about each other in the past. But we're going to hear them both speak about an issue on which they share a lot of common ground. But before we go to the speakers, folks, a little vocal warm-up. Let's get in the mood. Let's get going. Let's get pumped up. Here we go.
Yisrael Chai! I'm Yisrael Chai! I'm Yisrael Chai!
Come on, folks.
I'm Yisrael Chai! We stand with Israel. We stand. We stand. We stand. We stand. We stand. USA, USA, USA. We are with Israel.
All right, we're ready now? All right, now I feel like we can hear some speakers. Now we're in the mood. We got the blood flowing. We got pumped up. Chuck Schumer came out, worked the crowd, warmed up the crowd. What an opening act. Beautiful. All right, first speaker, Mike Johnson.
There are few issues in Washington that could so easily bring together leaders of both parties in both chambers. But the survival of the state of Israel and her people unites us together, and it unites all Americans. All Americans. Let me be very clear. The United States stands unequivocally.
I want to be very clear. I am not gay.
Yeah.
Don't ask.
With our
when I say
is that the rumor?
Say gay. I'm not gay. Yeah.
Is that the rumor?
No, he just seems like a guy who would go out of his way to try and assure people of that.
The guy who would.
I always have my suspicions.
Who would get busted reaching under the bathroom stall.
Yeah, exactly. He gives me that vibe.
It stands unequivocally. The United States stands unequivocally with our neighbor, our friend, our ally, Israel. They're neighbors in a global sense. That's right. The calls for a ceasefire are outrageous.
Wow.
Man, that brought the house down. That's like the intro to Stairway at a Zeppelin concert, you know? What a line.
We stand with you in that.
All right, so no ceasefire, no ceasefire, no ceasefire.
Wow.
Now here is House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, whose signature line, by the way, is extreme MAGA Republicans. He says that a lot nowadays. In fact, before we go to him, I want to go to a video of him just a couple days before this march talking about the need to win negotiations against these extreme MAGA Republicans who are very bad for the country and very difficult to work with. So let's go to him. This is just a couple days ago.
That challenge that we confront is that the extreme MAGA Republican agenda, which is deeply unpopular all across America, has nothing to do with improving the quality of life of the American people. The extreme MAGA Republican agenda is all about defaulting on America's debt, shutting down the government, crashing the economy,
killing 5,000 Palestinian
criminalizing
children.
abortion care, cutting
Is he
Social
gonna say that?
Security.
Is he ever going to get to that part? I thought extreme MAGA Republicans were for genociding Palestinians and Democrats weren't because they're so non-extreme. Does he ever get to that?
And Medicare?
No.
Impeaching President Joe Biden?
Oh, how extreme.
And censuring House Democrats.
Censuring
That's
House
the extreme
Democrats.
MAGA Republican.
That's the extreme MAGA Republican agenda, impeaching Biden and censuring House Democrats.
Well,
how extreme. How extreme. That's so much more extreme than leveling refugee camps, I guess.
I mean, he's right about the rest of it not being popular, but those last two are pretty popular. The impeaching Biden and censuring House Democrats. That part, that's a winning. Those are winning issues for the Republicans.
They're more winning than continuing this bombardment on Gaza. Only 34% of Americans are anti-ceasefire, and that's as of, what, a week and a half ago? I imagine the situation having only gotten much worse, it's probably fewer than that now. Probably more than 2/3 of Americans want a ceasefire now. But there's Hakeem Jeffries denouncing the extreme MAGA Republicans. They're so extreme. Yet he is, of course, as you can see here, willing to partner with the extreme MAGA Republicans on the most extreme policy of all, which is genocide. So here's Hakeem Jeffries.
Congress will continue to support in a bipartisan way.
Bipartisan.
The state of Israel.
Well, we can all agree on this.
Unequivocal right to exist as a Jewish and democratic state, always and forever.
Oh, see? So impeaching Biden, that's extreme. That's beyond the pale. Censuring Rashida Tlaib, that's extreme, beyond the pale. Cutting Medicare, that's extreme. Sniping hospital workers, killing doctors as they try to treat babies in hospitals. Oh, apparently that's not extreme. Apparently that's a bipartisan issue.
Well, this is what a lot of our ruling class does. Their job, the job of people like Hakeem Jeffries and Mike Johnson, is to tell the public that what is clearly monstrous and wrong is acceptable and right. That's what they do. They try to make it as if something that should be completely unacceptable or out of the ordinary is completely commonplace and something you shouldn't really worry about. That's that line I love in The Dark Knight, where he says people will accept anything as long as they feel like it's part of the plan. If you say 2,000 soldiers are going to be blown up tomorrow, it doesn't bother anybody. But if you say you're going to kill the mayor, everyone loses their minds, right? It's that. No, these MAGA Republicans want to impeach the president. So the framing is that's out of the ordinary. The Israelis want to genocide a population. Well, that's okay. It's part of the plan. It's part of the plan, so you shouldn't worry about it.
Yeah, exactly. Nobody expects any different.
Always and forever. Always and forever. From the very beginning of this conflict, President Joe Biden has strongly supported the state of Israel. And I strongly support President Biden's supplemental funding request for Israel, for Ukraine.
Nice to give a plug to the other world war.
Humanitarian assistance. We must also decisively address.
Okay, now I think he's about to say we must also decisively address the problem of civilian casualties in Gaza. I think he's going to introduce some humanity to this rally here. I think so.
The cancer of anti-Semitism with the fierce urgency.
Can't get a break with
now.
this guy.
Fierce
urgency of now. That's his bullshit line. That's his Obama line. That's the line he wants to catch on. He envisions himself running for president and getting stadiums of people to fierce urgency of now. That's his crock of garbage that he likes to peddle.
Well,
Every
he didn't coin that, did he?
Oh, but he uses it over and over. It's not like
his,
but he uses it over and over again. It's one of his go-tos.
It's the cliches pulling out.
Exactly.
Any of us is an attack on all of us. And we are going to do everything possible to stop the anti-Semitic attacks against our Jewish brothers and sisters.
Wow. And this is just a still that I wanted to put at the end of this video. Mm-hmm. Here they are. That on the right is Joni Ernst, left on the stage, our right as viewers. Joni Ernst, Chuck Schumer, Hakeem Jeffries, Mike Johnson. So the next time Hakeem Jeffries starts talking about the extreme MAGA Republicans, starts fear-mongering about the extreme MAGA Republicans, I want you to remember this photo. I tweeted out this photo so you can download it and save it and post it on anybody's wall whenever they quote Hakeem Jeffries as, being concerned about extreme MAGA Republicanism. He's perfectly happy to partner with the most extreme MAGA Republicans. Mike Johnson, who he was, during that speaker fight, man, these guys were blood enemies. He had not a thing nice to say about this Mike Johnson guy. Just a couple weeks ago, here they are, hand in hand, putting their differences aside to come together and support carpet bombing. That's who Hakeem Jeffries is. And Hakeem Jeffries doesn't give a shit about Jewish people either. I could tell you that. Hakeem Jeffries is a paid prostitute for the Israel lobby. One of his top donors, if not his top donor, his top individual contributor for the midterms was the Pro-Israel America PAC. He's just a paid pair of lips. That's all he is. That's all he is. He doesn't give a shit about Israel. Doesn't give a shit about Jewish people. He represents Jewish people in his district, and he takes a lot of money from Pro-Israel PAC. This is a position that he takes out of political expediency and nothing more. He, like Richie Torres, is perfectly willing to promote mass murder for money.
Right. Well, this is what my article was about. This shows you the shallowness that their identity politics has always been, right? I mean, we're supposed to care about colonialism and the oppressed and brown people, and marginalized people. They don't give a fuck. They care about who's paying them. And that's part of why this is kind of burning the establishment down. This was a bridge too far for the generation they've been grooming to take their place. You know, they were directing them away from questions of economics and class, and now they ran right into issues of colonialism and race.
Right.
And there's no way for them to get out of it.
Right. Can't wiggle out of that one with your fierce urgency of now bullshit.
Yeah. Not this time.
Not this time. Not this time. All right. Now, let's go to part B of our Hollapalooza coverage.
Hollapalooza?
Hollapalooza. Let's go to part B. All right. This is the part we all came for, folks. Here's the headline segment of the night. So, obviously, the attendees of the March for Israel, just a who's who of the most, sorry to have to abuse this term since I know this has a different connotation nowadays post-Hillary Clinton, but most deplorable, deplorable elements of society, both on the stage and in the audience. Hakeem Jeffries, Mike Johnson, Joni Ernst, Chuck Schumer. You had that crazy pastor there. I forget his name, the guy who was... a real Zionist pastor, but he's an evangelical Christian, just a lot of characters.
Hagee?
No, this was somebody else. I forget his name. But one name that stood out to a lot of left-wingers on this speaker docket here was Van Jones. Van Jones appeared at the March for Israel. And we thought, I can't say I was shocked because Van Jones is a bit of a sleaze, right? I mean, he like when you talk about grifters on the left, the grifters are not, and Russell and I were talking about this offline. The grifters are not like the Jimmy Dore types who take hard line positions and then wait for the audience to kind of come to them. The grifters are the people who pose as Van Jones, which is posing as a left quasi-alternative to the Democratic Party, while at the end of the day reliably fall in line behind the Democratic Party. That's
right.
the grift, right? Not to say they are psyops, but they function as psyops, right? Because,
they don't look any different.
They don't look any different, right? The CIA may as well pay you to act like this renegade challenger to the Democratic brass, while at the same time, at the end of the day, this is an important election, so I guess we got to vote Biden, Hillary, right? Whatever. That's who Van Jones really has always been. And so it's not terribly surprising to me that he would do a thing like this, but it is surprising that he would do a thing like this and try to make the kind of appeal to this audience that he tries to make here. He actually thought he can go on stage and be a voice of moderation to this audience. With them. Yeah. So here's Van Jones trying to present himself as a man of peace. I'm a peace guy. Let's see how they react to the quote-unquote peace guy.
I pray for peace. No more rockets.
Sorry. What the fuck is going on with the tech here? This is really screwing us tonight. Sorry about that. All right.
I'm a peace guy. I pray for peace. No more rockets from Gaza and no more bombs falling down on the people of Gaza. God protect the children. God protect children. Let's end all the horror. And all the
kill, murder.
And the Holy Land. Let's end all of it. Let's end all of it.
Look at this.
But I'll be honest in closing. When I think about what's happening over there, I don't feel powerful to do something about what's
There's the
happening
chant.
over there.
You hear him?
What
No
I do feel
ceasefire.
powerful is
No
to maybe do
ceasefire.
something about what's
Listen
happening
to these sick fucks. Listen to these
Let's
people.
take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslim. Let's take a stand
See how
here
rattled he is?
against
Okay, so a lot of people
Right.
latched on to the fact that he said, because he said, let's take a stand against anti-Jewish bigotry. And then he said, let's take a stand against Muslim. And I know some people were saying that was a Freudian slip. No, it wasn't. He meant to say, let's take a
He's
stand
rattled.
against anti-Muslim bigotry. But he's rattled. He's rattled because he has a mob of bloodthirsty scumbags shouting him down for suggesting that Gazan children are precious and should not be bombed.
Right.
I don't know how much of a narcissist, egomaniac moron you have to be to think that you are going to take the stage at that event and be a voice of peace and compassion and reason and moderation. That is some cocktail of narcissism and abject fucking stupidity. You just clowned yourself for no reason. You just embarrassed yourself for this audience and for the audience of progressives who were rightfully furious that you showed up to the fucking place to begin with. What were you thinking? What were you thinking? You don't know who these people are? And by these people, I know you guys know this, but I have to say this for the YouTube censors in case the wrong blue-haired loser is watching this and wants to turn our channel off. By these people, I mean the audience at the rally. I do not mean Jews. Russell and I are Jews, so go back about your business, right? Go pick on somebody else. That's what I mean by these people. I mean these
go back to your old job, putting the blur in on Naked and Afraid episodes.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Right. By these people, I mean this audience of bloodthirsty, murderous goons. That's who I'm talking about. The fact that he thought he was going to appeal to them, man, that you got to have some fucking ego on you. You got to have an ego about 1,000 times the size of your brain to think that you were going to be able to be a voice of peace in this environment.
Well, there's the same guy who was sitting there the night that the press offered Donald Trump to give him the old Bush foot rub when he bombed Syria. Then he became president tonight. Yep. Tonight's the night he became president.
Yep.
No leftist of any stripe would ever make such a formulation. So he's scum, but he thought that he had the credibility with this crowd, because I mean, let's face it, there's a lot of overlap on the Zionist shitlib Venn diagram. He thought he has enough credibility with this crowd that he could maybe be a moderating voice, which of course, as you say, is egocentric and misguided. But what was he thinking? That's what he was thinking, because I was telling you, somebody I know very well was at this march and bragging about being at that march. This is the same person who bragged to me about how much they watch CNN as if it was a badge of honor. So you could see why he might have thought that these people would listen to him, because he's on the CNN.
I mean, if anything, that makes his motive all the more sinister, because he's out there saying, hey, look, I can go and I can convince America that the people who support Israel are not these monstrous, bloodthirsty, murderous, just madmen and madwomen. Like, he's trying to smooth over the reputation of people who, I'm sorry, deserve to be called out, deserve to be shamed, deserve to be mass canceled, right? I don't support censoring or deplatforming, but they should be boycotted for all intents and purposes, social boycotts, right? That's what he's trying to do. He's trying to go out there and say, hey, if I can get a huge round of applause out of this audience for, hey, let's stop bombing kids, then that'll make Israel look a little better, right? Because they'll make it look like, hey, look, not everybody who supports this is, as angry and as out for blood as they are. But that's the thing. They are. They are. And you can't smooth that over. They won't even let you give them the win. They can't calm down long enough to understand what you're trying to do. Here's Van Jones trying to make them look better than they actually are. And they can't take that. They won't stand for that. They can't take the win. Peace. I'm a peace guy. Boo! Boo! No ceasefire! No ceasefire! We'll play the rest of this.
What I do feel powerful is to maybe do something about what's happening here. Let's take a stand here against anti-Jewish bigotry. Let's take a stand against Muslims. Let's take a stand here
this was a terrible idea.
Against hatred. Let's take a stand here against
what was I thinking?
Of all kinds. I don't want.
Oh, what was I thinking? What did I get myself into? Incredible.
These are the people that my, Zionist associate who I'm spying on, not responding, using every fiber of my being not to respond, said was a very peaceful rally. See, this is how much better they are. So much of that is projection. Everything they say about the Muslims, this is what they are. That they're bloodthirsty, that they're unreasonable, that they're savage, that they're murderous. Well, what are you? What are you? I mean, because my experience with Muslims is that they're generally pretty polite, kind of retiring, sort of humble people. That's my experience with Muslims. And hey, if you watch this show for a while, I have made the point that that if you think that the Muslim world is running around with a rainbow flag, that's moronic. But that doesn't mean you can't have queers for Palestine. I think that's very noble if you understand that. And you still understand that it doesn't matter. The video that I was going to upload tonight, I had technical difficulties. Before I talked to the rabbi, there was a guy, this was his own. He was saying to the rabbi, do you support gay rights in Israel? Do you support gay rights in Israel? Like, what the fuck does this have to do with anything?
Right.
That, people who are taking that line, like Bill Maher, it really shows you what the purpose of that whole project is. It's a distraction from the real issues. That's what it was always meant to be, right? Let's deflect from genocide to talk about gay rights in the Muslim world. Yeah, that's really, I can see how that weighs out.
Right, exactly. Chant of the Moldaya, thanks for the $5. What kind of fool puts military infrastructure under a children's hospital? Really made it clear children's hospitals are one of the most dangerous places in Gaza. What I would say to that, and I know you super chat us quite a bit, so I don't know if you mean that somewhat ironically, but what I would say is that, imagine a domestic terrorist organization here in the United States shacked up at an American hospital. Would we say it is okay for the government to shoot anything that moves inside the hospital if it were American citizens in the hospital? Would we say it's okay for the government to drop bombs on ambulance envoys going in and out of the hospital because there might be one of these domestic terrorists in there? Of course not. Of course not.
And beyond that, as a guest was saying on Piers Morgan today about the Israeli claims, you can't trust anything that they say. And he was laying out the cases of journalists that they murdered, that they said they absolutely did not murder. And then once it was investigated, they were murdered. So let me ask you this. Hey, maybe it's true. But let me ask you this. Is there any situation in which Israel would have gone in there and said, no, we didn't find anything? They can't say that.
Right.
They can't say that. Just like with the missile. They couldn't admit that it was their missile that hit the hospital parking lot a couple of weeks ago. it wouldn't have mattered what they found. They were going to say that. So is it true? It's not a very credible source. Let's put it that way. The Israeli government claiming it is not a basis for believing it.
No, of course not. But what I'm saying is, even if you did believe it, we would not ever give the green light for our own government to just massacre our own citizens inside an American hospital if that hospital were commandeered by domestic terrorists. We would say, no, you have to take much more care for civilian life inside the hospital than Israel's taking now. Franklin Worsham, thanks for the $1.99. Israel has water, which is more valuable than oil. Well, apparently to the people of Gaza now, sure is. When will Lebanon and Turkey stop this? It's in their hands now. I heard Turkey...
And Iran.
Well, I heard Turkey... there's something in the news about Turkey today. I have to look into it. But thank you, Franklin. Appreciate that. Left Less, thanks for the $2. Peter Boyle putting on a Ritz. Young Frankenstein. Yeah, you got that one.
You got it.
You got it. Thank you, Left Less. Purin Boom 77. Bipartisan usually means that larger than usual deception is being carried out. Yes, George Carlin. Thank you very much for that.
The greatest.
The greatest. The GOAT, as they say. DC, thanks for the $2. Talmudic law greater than democracy. Pick one, or one or the other. Pick one. There, I get what you're saying. Not greater than. Those are
we think it's so horrible if somebody invokes the Quran or the Bible, right? But somehow you got Chuck Schumer, the leader of the Senate, openly invoking the Talmud as a basis for U.S. foreign policy in the Middle East, and not a peep. Nobody has anything to say about that, apparently.
Yeah. That's a perfectly reasonable document to cite for any territorial dispute over there. Well, they don't read the Torah, so they don't
document
that it's not there. The land's not theirs, right?
Yeah, no, a document that says that when women menstruate, they need to go a mile out of town and dig a hole with a paddle and then come back and sacrifice some doves to purify themselves before they could rejoin the community. Yeah, no, that's a basis for a foreign policy if I ever heard one.
Exactly. Bonzo Beans, pieces for pussies. Fuck yeah. There we go. That should have been a sign of the crowd. Thank you, Bonzo Beans. And yes, fuck yeah. This aggression will not stand, man. This aggression will not stand. Thank you. Alrighty, we got some more super chats, which we will get to in a little while. We have one more segment, though, to close out the evening. Running a little bit behind because we had those technical difficulties at the beginning of the program. But we do still have time for one more song. One more song. All right, so this is just a sort of case study in shifting opinions and perspectives. Russell found these two videos. So do you want to set up what we're about to see?
Yes, and this will allow us, I'm glad you put this last because these are grim times and we want to give people some hope. I have never seen so many people become informed on this issue in a meaningful way, and it happened very quickly. So if there's any good to come out of this horror, it's that Israel, as it has existed, I believe, is over. It cannot continue because too many people are waking up to what it really is, who a month ago didn't know and didn't ask. So we found a couple of very interesting videos dealing with that.
Okay, so this first is an Arab man saying, "Thank you, Israel, for showing the world your true character."
Tahiyati Tariq. I really want to thank you, Israel, for the last couple of weeks. I really want to thank you for finally liberating the American public from your grip. I really want to thank you for finally allowing people to criticize you freely without being scared. People were terrified of you, but right now they're not. The whole world is speaking out against your atrocities, against your lobby, against the control of the media. I want to thank you for uniting the whole world in support of the Palestinian people. I want to thank you for making us the #1 case in the world. I want to thank you for exposing the traitors and the cowards and the people that pretend to be for humanity, but they're nothing but conspiring and complicit for atrocities around the world. I want to thank you for finally showing the world who you really are. And I want to thank you for liberating the Palestinian people, because this is the end. I want to thank you for so many things, uniting us. What a weekend we had. We all came together and we celebrated the freedom from your grip. Eventually, everyone is going to be free from your monstrous grip.
Yeah, I mean, great stuff there. And I would add one more thing to his monologue, which is it really in these times exposes people to the power and virulence of real, actual racism. You see the power of actual racism because, you know, we've devoted a lot of time to this show. We've spent a lot of time on this show, I should say, calling out people for either seeing racism where it doesn't exist or blaming more systemic problems on what they can sort of disingenuously put in a racial context, right? This sort of pseudo woke for you. If you don't want us to sort of bastardize the term woke, the pseudo woke industrial complex, right? The Robin DiAngelos, right, who get paid to go in and lecture working class people about their racial blind spots and things like that, right? You have these capitalists basically going in and speaking the language of racial tolerance and fear-mongering about your racist coworker, who's on the clock with you, who throws microaggressions your way, 4 or 5 times a shift, and this is why your workplace is dysfunctional, right? That
white supremacy,
right? That is not real power racism. This is
right.
This is when you cannot have a case as simple as from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free, which means nothing more than Palestinian people will enjoy free and equal rights from the Jordan Sea to the Mediterranean. On this land, our people will be free to live their lives as they choose. That is all that phrase means. Right. That is all that phrase means. But it is abject racism that allows people like Dana Bash to say, no, that's not what it means, because that's not what Jews say it means, meaning that's not what we say it means. It doesn't matter what you say it means or what non-Zionist Jews say it means. It only matters what we say because we're the only people who count. We're the only people who matter. And you see that ideology, weaponized to such extreme and obscene degrees as to these same anchors seem to have every excuse in the book ready to go when Israel attacks. Refugee camps, ambulance envoys, schools, mosques, hospitals, you name it. They never run out of reasons why we have to support them anyway, to the point where we had that Israel march yesterday in the wake of all this. As a hospital was being sieged, you had thousands of people on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. with the leaders of both major parties who are at each other's throats on every other issue come out and hold hands to unite behind the Israel terror campaign in Gaza. That's racism. That is absolute racism, whether white boy Mike Johnson does it or Hakeem Jeffries does it. It's the same racism. And this conflict has brought that to light in a way that we haven't seen before. I shouldn't say that. That's wrong. We have seen it before, but we haven't been seeing much of it recently because so much of racial discourse has been hijacked by hucksters. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, that's the role people like Hakeem Jeffries and Kamala Harris play within the system to make it look like it's fair and progressive, right? We're rising ever upward. The universe is bending towards justice, right? Because we have people with the same old ideas, policies, attitudes as morally compromised, but it's a diverse group of people, right? It's not all white anymore, so we've really made progress. And they were lining up Tlaib and Omar for that as well. They were going to be their pet, Muslims, and they were going to use them to cover up their crimes. But this was a bridge too far for them. They couldn't do it. They couldn't go along with this. They could sell out their constituents on force the vote. They could sell them out on the infrastructure bill being paired to what was the name of the other part of that bill? I forget now.
The infrastructure bill, well, it was Build Back Better.
Build Back Better. Was that the other part? No, there was the other part that they said they wouldn't vote for the one without the other. It doesn't
I forget
matter.
what the other part was called.
Everybody knows what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, they could sell them out with that, but this was just too much. This was just too much. They couldn't do it. But that's really the function that they serve. On a personal note, you know, I've said on several shows now, you know, Hebrew school, my experience of Hebrew school was they teach you Hebrew and they teach you Zionism. And that was one of the reasons I didn't like it. I instinctively felt like they were trying to sell me a bridge, right? It was just too much constant pressure coming to believe a certain thing. And even as a child, I always reacted negatively to that kind of energy. But later on, when I learned more about Judaism, I actually felt very cheated by that experience. Because Judaism, if you're a very philosophical kind of a person who really likes to run thought experiments about the nature of the universe, that is a religion you'll probably have a lot of fun exploring. And that's really what those rabbis were trying to say today, that that's what it is. But I can tell you from my experience in Hebrew school, what they're saying is true. These Zionists so infiltrated the religion that if you went to, you know, the equivalent of Sunday school as a Jew in America, you probably don't even know that Zionism is not Judaism. You're only that is how deep their roots have gotten into the entire community. And it's something that maybe as part of this, we can tear up. And that is a good setup to the next video, because this girl, I know this girl, man. I mean, not for real, but I know this girl. This girl is a very typical kind of Jewish girl who I'm sure got bat mitzvahed, grew up in a probably Jewish neighborhood, probably has predominantly Jewish friends, and watching somebody like that wake up is amazing.
All right. Here's video number 2.
Ask yourself the question of, when did you start to ask yourself the question of, what about Palestine?
Too freaking late. I started asking myself that question too freaking late. I grew up culturally Jewish. My friends, my boyfriends, my life was surrounded by Jewish people. In fact, it was like kind of cool to be Jewish when I grew up. I didn't even really know the concept of Zionism, because Zionism was just Judaism, right? The idea that Israel should be a place, a safe haven for Jewish people. That just was what it was. The concept of birthright made total sense. I didn't even question it. The fact that the government would subsidize a trip to Israel so that you could see your homeland. That didn't strike me as weird at all. And the Jewish population is pretty small, so there's only a few degrees of separation between you and somebody who lives in Israel. And it just felt like part of the package of being Jewish. I didn't question the fact that after the Holocaust, we would need a safe haven. And yes, 6 million people dying this close in terms of the history of the world is terrifying. And yes, Jewish people are not the most beloved people on the planet, right? Traditionally, we're not. So yeah, it made sense to me. But I didn't think about how many other people have been genocided and that they don't get their own theocratic ethno-state. I didn't know that in order to achieve that, in order to get Israel to be Israel, that Palestinians had to be forcibly removed from their homes. I didn't know that it was an illegal occupation. I didn't know that Israel controlled a huge percentage of Palestinians' water. I didn't know that it was a 75-year occupation. I didn't know that Palestinians had to move through checkpoints in order to get anywhere. I didn't know that 90% of their economy is from handouts, that like the world has been giving them resources because they don't have any of their own because of said occupation. I didn't know that there were thousands of Palestinian prisoners in Israel that don't get a trial, hundreds of whom are kids. I didn't know that Israel had one of the strongest militaries in the world and provides military supplies to a lot of the rest of the world. I didn't think about the fact that putting an ally in the middle of the Middle East filled with Jews as a gift from the US and from the British would be a super smart political tactic because none of the rest of the world wanted us anywhere. My first thought after the October 7th attack was what a brutal, horrific thing to happen to the Jewish population and to the Israeli civilians. And I still believe that that is true. However, I didn't have context. And now that over 10,000 Palestinians have died, now that I know that Israel dropped more bombs in 6 days than the US dropped in Afghanistan in an entire year of war, now that I've listened and learned for the past 3 weeks, I wish I had asked, what about Palestine sooner?
Boom. When you lost that girl, you lost. You lost. I know this girl. When you lost her, you lost everybody. You lost everybody except the bloodthirsty fucking psychos at that rally, right. Most of whom I promise you were probably over 40. Most of them are from that older generation of Jews where you just didn't even question this.
Yeah, no. Powerful stuff for sure. No doubt about that. Yeah, and I know what you mean. I mean, I when you say, you know, I know that girl, yeah, I mean, if you're Jewish, you know basically that the experience of that person and how it shapes the way they think about things. Yeah, we've all met a handful. some more than others. But yes, if you can get through to that person, it means you've lost. And I know people like that who have not had the kind of breakthrough that she had, you know. Right. So I'm not saying it has a full success rate, obviously. It doesn't. But the fact that, you know, you have people like her talking like that, yeah, that's very significant. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And a lot of it has to do with what the first guy said, which is Israel woke people up to this by doing this. And by doing it at a time when people have the means to get information out to each other, who don't have to filter information through, you know, hatchet men like Piers Morgan, right? Or Dana Bash or Joe Scarborough, right? You don't have to filter information through them because once they get control of the information, that's it. Then you're screwed. You only see what they want you to see at that point.
Well, and this is also happening at a time when nobody watches those fucking mummies anymore.
Exactly.
I mean, I would bet you this girl's TikTok video has been seen by more people than CNN got seen by for the last week.
Yeah, I think you're right. Killing it on TikTok. It on TikTok. L. Corey, thanks for the $5. Your video on the devastating incident where 2 people had to move their table twice was shouted out by Glenn Greenwald on Jimmy Dore Show. Yeah, I saw that part of it. I messaged that to Glenn. I thought he would like that when I put it up. And thankfully he did like it. And he tweeted it out, and that got it a lot of views. I know Jimmy tweeted it out too. So that video did pretty well. But yeah, that was one of the reasons why we chose to highlight that for the show is because that's one of those things it's so absurd, but it's not spectacular enough to like go viral on its own. Like a video of veterans moving tables doesn't have the wow effect to get out there, but his absurd take on it just was right down the middle for us as 2 snarky, sarcastic Jew boys to make some good satire out of it. So I'm glad they liked it. T-Bone 316, great show as always, boys. Thank you, T-Bone. Good appearance on the Jimmy Dore Show this week. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Who are you thinking of collaborating in the future? By the way, Keaton, reach out to Miko Peled. Yeah, I will, actually. I will, for an interview. Very topical at the moment. Yeah, I've seen some stuff of his. That would be a great interview. But Russell made some great contacts at this rally. We're going to have some people on who he met at the rally.
I made contact with the rabbis, so hopefully we'll have a rabbi on talking about some of what I've been mentioning, and to Palestinians too. So we're going to speak to them, and hopefully we'll have them on.
Yeah, that'll be great. Janice Anderson, thanks for the $4.99. Both speakers should be made to register as foreign agents, considering
You're right.
how much they get from foreign country lobbies. Yeah,
You're right.
They should. You're right. Absolutely. DC, thanks for the $2. A word for all things foreign interference. Collusion.
You know, I got to go back. This would be a fun little feature to do because you're talking about, doing flashbacks. This story got buried for obvious reasons, but after 2016, an article came out basically making the case that there's more evidence for Israel interfering in the election of 2016 than Russia. And it was in a mainstream publication.
Yeah,
like
it
there
was
was
in a
there was
mainstream
you know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah.
We should dig that up now.
Yeah, it's a good idea. We're thinking of, well, we're not thinking of, we are going to do it. We are going to start doing some flashback segments, like pieces throughout the years that are relevant to this conflict now. So on Friday, we're going to do the classic Glenn Greenwald takedown of Bill Maher on the Middle East more broadly. He does mention Israel in that monologue that he goes on, but we're going to do that. And then, we'll take some other stuff because, like, the Bill Maher stuff in particular, because I remember that confrontation between Ben Affleck and Sam Harris on the Bill Maher show. And I remember how on Harris's side I was at the time and how foolish that seems in retrospect. And it's not that everything Affleck was saying was correct, but fundamentally he could sniff them out for who they were at the time.
Right.
He knew they were only using this, academic critique of Islamic ideology as a mask for what they really were doing, which is excusing the mistreatments, and in this case, genocide of Muslim people. And so, like, that's a situation where I look back and say, yeah, I did not call that one right. And so there are things that we're going to do like that. I don't know if we'll play that one. Maybe we will. But the Greenwald thing is phenomenal. That's an all-time classic piece of video, and we'll start doing more stuff there because that's important to educate people on the topics, to look back and say, okay, here is an explosion of this conflict at another time in another in a different context that we can use to understand this better. And who doesn't want to see Greenwald pick apart Bill Maher? I mean, who doesn't want to watch it? That's just good TV.
That's entertainment.
Yeah,
it's like rollerball.
Exactly. It's like rollerball. Paul Chu for $5. This looks like a super group of the worst musicians from each band they're from. You're talking about the Schumer Jeffries photo.
The traveling Woolberries of Congress, if you will.
Yeah, exactly. Russ, on a lighter note, when you go to Ben's, is that dough-wrapped hot dog, is it flaky or more like a bagel? You talk about Ben's Deli?
I mean, Ben's sucks, man.
Ben's is
I don't need a Ben's.
No, Ben's is really not good.
No, listen, man. If you want the real experience, I mean, look, Kat says you can't beat the pastrami and all that, but you want the real, like, old-school Jewish restaurant, 2nd Avenue Deli. You can't top it.
Yeah, 2nd Avenue Deli is great stuff. Yeah, no, Ben's is kind of bizarre. It's really not very good. I was only there once because my cousin had not a rent-controlled apartment. She won the 80-20 lottery. So she had, like, this super cheap apartment in Hell's Kitchen. And Ben's is right there. It's like high 30s, West Side. I forget exactly.
Yeah, it's like 37th.
Yeah, something like that. So I ate there once because it was right down the block from her place. So we all went there. And, yeah, I mean, it's crap.
The only thing I like about Ben's is I don't think they've redone that place since 1977.
Yeah, no, it is a step back in time. Yeah, it looks like the 70s in there.
It looks like the 70s, and even that entrance with the walkway with the revolving door, that is like a restaurant from the 70s.
Yeah.
The tacky orange pleather, like all of that going on. But yeah, no, for food, 2nd Avenue Deli.
Kuznetsky Bassane, thanks for the $4.99. Thanks to you guys for being humanist advocates in an insane, hypocritical world. Well, thank you for your support, my friend. Appreciate that very much. Guys, thank you all very much for being here. Please hit that like button. Please hit that subscribe button. If you're over on Rumble, please hit that follow button. Go ahead.
All right. What you're talking about is actually the place on Grand. You're talking about the Pickle Guys. And yeah, that place is really good. That is all, not just pickled cucumbers, it's pickled everything. Watermelon, corn, jalapenos, everything. You never been there?
No.
Yeah, that's it. That's right. That's on the same block as Kosar's, which is the oldest Bialy shop in America. That goes back to 1936.
Yeah. SB, thanks for the $5. God bless Jews for Palestine, you guys and others. Dear Zionists, find God and he might forgive you. 0.0001 chance. He probably won't enjoy hell. Well, thank you, SP. Appreciate that. All right, folks. Is that all we got tonight? I know we ran a little late because of our tech mishaps, but thank you, Jake, for helping us sort that out. Oh, no. Jake says he's got more on Rumble. One more. Where's the last Rumble rant? Did you put that in here for me? Oh, yes, you did. Good catch. Thank you, Jake. Sorry about that. T-Bone, almost missed you there. Big round of applause for Jake for fixing the Rumble stream tonight for us. Round of applause in the chat for producer Jake Bose and for fielding these Rumble rants for us. Yeah, he saved the day. Saved the day this evening. TikTok is run by Israeli security. That video is getting shadow banned immediately. Thanks again. Russell, when you have the rabbi on Play the Schmonta rap. Yeah, that would be good.
I'll ask him. So, Addy, do you feel we should get compensation for my great-grandfather inventing hip-hop?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to give you an example.
Exactly. We should teach him. Yeah, we should teach him. Teach him the ropes. Alrighty, folks. Well, once again, I just want to make a final pitch to you guys. Final pitch of the evening. We are up above 430 members. Now we got a couple more patrons signed up over the course of this broadcast. So we are got to be now up around the 440 mark, which means we are really closing in on 500 paid members. And when we get to 500 paid members, we can afford to do a fourth stream of the week. That'll be an hour-long uncensored stream on Rumble. And we're thinking Thursday mornings for that. We were going to do 10 a.m., but we should probably do 9 because Kit's on at 10. So if it's going to be an hour-long show, we may as well get it done in time for people to switch over to Hardlands, right? So maybe we'll do that. So that'll be an hour-long uncensored stream on Rumble. Those are going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to be able to do those. I can't wait to be able to make all the jokes that I can't make here on our uncensored
Rumble. We crack each other up all the time, and we're like, yeah, we can't say that one on the show.
Oh yeah, yeah. when we're pitching the segments to each other and we're brainstorming, it's a riot. And then we're like, oh man, I can't go there, can't go there.
Yeah, exactly.
On Rumble, we won't be bound by any of that, so you will get the full experience. So we can't wait to do that, but we are not independently wealthy, and we have to be able to afford it, so we need to get to 500 members. But we're almost there. You guys are going to get us there. I think we're going to get there by the end of the year. We are up over 440 right now, so we are closing in. Closing in, folks. We also have some scheduling notes we want to make. On Wednesday, a week from tonight, the 22nd, that is the night before Thanksgiving. So we will be doing a matinee show, 2 p.m. on that day because people are out and about Thanksgiving Eve. They're not here. I think my wife's going to the new Hunger Games movie with a work friend, like in the middle of the day. And so, So
put a chick in it, make her gay.
So everybody's got plans. So we're going to be 2 p.m. that day, and then we will be off. Off. Remember that? Remember what it was like to have a day off? We will be off on Black Friday. No show Friday morning. That's just a good old-fashioned day off.
Yeah. Well, because they're going to have a sale on a Cuisinart that Keaton's had his eye on.
Yeah, we'll be stampeding our fellow Americans at Target on Friday.
We've got
morning.
elbow pads.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we will be off Friday morning, but we are on this Friday, 9 a.m., and then Sunday, 7 p.m., regular time. So we just want to give you guys an extra heads up for the programming this week. But thank you guys very much for tonight. It was great to see you all. We had about 1,100 in YouTube, about 500 over on Rumble, a little under. So good night overall, despite our technical hiccups to start. So thank you guys for bearing with us and sticking with us through that. We appreciate you all very much. We will see you back here Friday morning for some morning dew this Friday, November 17th at 9 a.m. Thank you very much for tonight. Thanks for being here. Thank you all for your support. Until we see you again, be safe and be well.
You got city hands, Mr. Hooper. Been counting money all your life.
Courage.
Please clap.